All right, very good. It is recording. So, yeah, take it away, Sins.
Make sure I am not muted or anything like that. Okay. First one, buy a new mic before 2026. Look, dude, I just moved to Dallas like 3 weeks ago. All my stuff's in storage. So I'm wearing the shocks that I use for cycling and working out right now. They do not have a good mic, and such is life.
I
Next one,
understand, but yes, let's
Kramus
continue.
Chowder. I don't know if you know who Kramus is. Maybe you do, and if not, I'll introduce him to the community. Kramus probably still has the record for Peasant Militia all locations. At least he did for a while for speedrunning it. He actually used 5 lone wolf tanks in that run. There's no exploit run, none of the zombie shenanigans or no library exploit or anything, arena exploit, none of that stuff. Just play the game, the typical third partying and scripted seed stuff you do in speedrun. So very knowledgeable player. When I thought about the kind of top 20 or so players, it actually was including Klamis in there. And so his summary of this is Axe Mastery is overranked in this. I think I agree with him. You only take it on Axe Newts. And I actually think Axe Newts are one of the weaker fatigue neutrals that a skilled player can build if you're even building fatigue neutrals.
I very rarely build fatigue neutral, so I really don't have too many comments. Like outside of the fatigue neutral, so you can move and attack. Like if you're ignoring that, the other reason why axe mastery is good is just because like the barbarian axe is one of the best weapons in the game, and it's so plentiful. Like it's basically free weapon, and it's a really good free weapon. So you might as well use it. A lot of times you don't need the mastery. That is true. Outside the fatigue reduction, the mastery doesn't really do anything. Like it breaks shields faster. That's so niche. It's only good against strats. And I don't even know what the other effects are. I don't think it has any other effects, right?
I think you one-shot strat shield, at least with the great axe without mastery.
I think the round swing might be like more accurate, but nobody ever uses that, so that's like irrelevant.
And the Bardiche split, which I guess you can build a damage brother around it and that'd be okay, but I think that's pretty niche.
Yeah.
The great sword split is actually better than the Bardiche split for a couple reasons. I think a little bit better accuracy, same damage and armor pen, and the great sword gets cost less fatigue to equip.
I will say the Bardiche looks amazing, but I don't think it's that great of a weapon.
Yeah, so I think I'm comfortable with low B or even mid C. What do you think for Axe Mastery? Not Axe as a weapon. Obviously, Axes are great weapons, but Axe Mastery is a perk.
This is where I'll defer to you, Sins, because I pretty much never build fatigue neutrals. I still take it a decent amount because, like, the Great Axe is good. And I take it on brothers who are not fatigue neutral just for the degree of fatigue reduction. Like, you get a little value out of that. And part of it is also like, on my damage brothers, I just love giving them mastery for thematic reasons, even if it's not the strongest perk they can take. So I'm okay with low B, high C.
Yeah, I think that's fine range. We can put it here now, and I mean, I guess another way to think of this is if somebody said, "Hey, Deductor, can you do a run where you're not allowed to take Axe Mastery?" Would you actually care? And if the answer is no, we should put it in C.
Oh, I wouldn't really care. I mean, I assume I can still use axes. Not like even if I can't use axes, it'll be fine. Like, but it would just be like the question is, would I use axes without mastery? The answer is yes. Like absolutely. For 90% of the duration of run, I give my brothers great axes with no mastery because I'll float perk points because I feel like the perk points are useful on something else. And yeah, I mean, in that framework of thinking about it, then yes, Axe Mastery is worse. That's a good point.
Right. I want to handle the next question here. This one I think is not relevant. How does this 4-year-old perk tier list hold up?
I remember watching that. I don't remember the content anymore. I just thought it's a good watch.
Yeah, I think 4 years ago was we'd only had, at least I'd only had maybe 10 or so hours into the Blazing Deserts. It was before there've been 2 balance patches since then. I think it's outdated in terms of balance, and then outdated in terms of we didn't really understand a lot of the changes to the game came along with Blazing Deserts, and we hadn't adapted yet. So I think that this old tier list, I mean, if somebody wants to compare them, I mean, in light of what I know about the game today, I think I'm comfortable saying it's not a very good tier list. But the game is also different now too. The game is a lot different than it was when this was released. I didn't understand how Anticipation Relentless had been patched. This is before Headhunter had been patched, before Flails got reworked. Um, Nine Lives has been buffed twice since then. We didn't understand fast adaptation. And like having Scout, Lookout, and Retinue makes the game so much faster that we didn't understand how important snowballing was. So I think this is just not a very good list, honestly.
All right, very well then. It's playing an ad, by the way, so
Oh yeah.
you can move on to the next perk if you just want, or question. You just have to read it.
Uh, okay, I'll read the next one, and you can respond to it. From Too Late to Realize, who just based on what he posts, he's probably some kind of somewhere between intermediate and advanced. I can't really tell from reading the post, but definitely thinks about the game in a intelligent way. Maybe we have varied playstyle, but personally, I feel utterly dreadful to get through the grind against zombies and brigands. That's the last thing penultimate for me before I get a gun or two to blast these battles ASAP. And blast almost everything except Chosen, Ancient Dead, and Orc Warriors. Hybrid Fearsome Gunner in arena tournaments almost guarantees a win. Blasting Beast's late game cuts the duration of the fight in half, and he'd be S tier for him for that reason.
Uh, I don't know that the grind against brigands and zombies is relevant. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a different play style. So
Yeah,
he acknowledges that it's a completely different play style. If you're playing the game to like day 200, 300, whatever, and you just like to grind a lot, then sure. And you want to minimize real world time, of course, you need like builds that just clears the game super, super quick, right? And in that
right.
context, a gunner, fearsome gunner makes absolute sense. But the
Mm-hmm.
way I play and the way Sins plays, that you play, is not really focused on like the long-term grinding, and we just want to, like, I think we're both more interested in the early and mid game, and by that it's like before Nimbo and then after Nimbo, and then level 11 is like really done with the game. So in that context, by the time you get fearsome gunners, just like whatever, it doesn't I mean they're still good, of course, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
critical. It's like by the time you get there, you've almost, like, you've already won.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter.
I like we're making a trip to the desert, which desert is really kind of a, I'm gonna say mid-level area. There aren't any really true tier 3 camps in the desert for a level 11 team. So going down there day 80 to buy 4 guns just feels bad if you're not like picking a seed with ports. And those seeds are pretty rare. I think just the cost in time in terms of time and money accessing guns is why I think they're B tier. If you could buy guns in the north, in every armor, I might rate them low A. But I think that this is a good place for them.
I'll admit I've never made a mask gunner build. I have no reason to doubt it's extremely strong. It should be. Uh, by the time you have that, you've already won. So
Yeah,
any of
agreed.
those builds where by the time you have this, you already won is not particularly interesting to me personally.
Agreed. Agreed. So we have some C and D tier perks to look through here. I'm going to start us off with Berserk. The Berserk Frenzy conversation is probably going to be long. Do you want to get that kicked off for us while we put it C tier?
Sure. Now, I might disagree with you here. I might move Berserk up to a B, although I would leave Frenzy at a C. So Berserk, the ability is very simple. You kill an enemy, you get 4 AP back. And with one-handed weapon, you can attack again. With a two-handed weapon, as long as you haven't moved, you can attack as well. So it is very powerful in the sense that anything that gives you AP in this game is amazing. But why is Berserk like it used to be? Everybody loves Berserk. Berserk was one of the most taken perks in the game, and like more damage is good, right? The faster you kill enemies, the better. That's how you not take damage in this game. It's by killing enemies super quick. Furthermore, with quick hand shenanigans, even if you don't have a even if you can have like two-handed weapons, a great axe and then a long axe. So you kill something, but there's no enemies adjacent to you. That's okay. You quick hands and then you smack something with the long axe, so you can maximize your damage. So why is Berserk not that great? Well, there are numerous reasons. Reason number one: fatigue neutral is an extremely strong build that does good damage and is very survivable. That type of build doesn't need Berserk. So if fatigue neutrals are good without Berserk, that's an interesting clue, right, as to the value of Berserk. Sometimes you proc it and there's nothing to attack next to you. But in there are some how do I explain this right? There are fights where you proc Berserk all the time that don't matter. Like if you're fighting fallen heroes or brigands or smaller groups of like barbarians. So you proc Berserk, it doesn't matter. There are some tough fights where you proc Berserk and it doesn't matter. I'm thinking Strats, Lindworms, anything with massive hit point pools. You might get 1 or 2 extra attacks out of that run, and it's like whatever. It doesn't have much value. So where are the fights where Berserk is good? It would be larger fights, goblins. Although goblins are pretty easy, you could probably beat them without Berserk anyway, but it's very helpful. Large groups of ancient dead, definitely got some value there. Large groups of barbarians, large groups of nomads and southern cities. So quite a few groups, and certain types of beasts, like the webnecks. So certain types of enemies, it's also very good at. But Berserk, it competes with things that are amazing, like Fearsome. That's probably the biggest reason in my mind, which is that you want to proc Fearsome, you want to route the enemy, and once the enemy is routed, you don't really even need Berserk on your damage dealers. Like Fearsome is, like in a way, a better damage perk since it routes the enemy faster, which is better, shockingly, than killing them outright. And it it has a cascading effect on the battle. Like in my current run on YouTube, I've taken 0 Fearsomes, a decent amount of Berserk, and like my efficiency in clearing those large camps is not great. I'm still clearing the large battles, but it's not like super efficient, and I actually do take some damage. So that's just the contrast between Berserk and Fearsome. You also have slight bit of anti-synergy because you kill stuff like you're not procking. You don't need to proc Fearsome, but I don't know. I buy that argument too much. The reason why I would personally put it in B is I feel like there are some fights where having a little bit of Berserk is super, super useful. Like on some battles, you just need to proc it on maybe 2 or 3 bros a couple of times, and then you can use that extra AP to reposition yourself or to attack another enemy. And in the right situation, that can be clutch. And that's why I personally think it's B. I know that's
Yeah,
a rambly answer, but what do you think, Sin?
I think that's a good start to the conversation. So I actually put it in C just to kind of poke the bear. Because I wanted to make a point that Berserk goes down a lot in value the better you get the game. For a lot of reasons, like you said, a lot of the fights where you're proccing Berserk a lot, you don't even need Berserk to win them. We do not care about Berserk for, like, we're fighting brigands or webnecks, and we have a bunch of level 8 and 9 dudes. If you're, on or ahead of curve and you're reasonably versed in the game, those are freebie fights. Basically, after Nimble, 80% of the fights in the game become free. And so the perks you take after that don't have value. You're looking at perks to take in hard fights. And so what I really mean when I say Berserk goes down in good value, goes down in value when you get better at the game, is that you tend to specialize your brothers. I would say between like level 5 and after your brothers slowly specialize. The first couple levels, you're just taking perks to get people up and running. You fast adaptation, 9 lives, dodge, gifted colossus. And then you start thinking, okay, here's where this brother's rolled, here's where his stats go. And part of that is having a vision over what this brother does. And especially when you're playing with average, brothers that are between good and bad. We don't have Chads. Maybe one or two a run max. So we really need to utilize their strengths and weaknesses in order to build an effective team. And a big part of that is specializing roles. And so what that means is, let's say you have a hammer shield guy with underdog. He can kind of take contact. He can have two or three guys come into him, and he can kind of defend. That he can also use that hammer to set up kills. If hammer, hammer or mace, whatever, he's really effective at stripping armor. That brother doesn't want Berserk, right? Because he wants to be investing his stats in defenses and his perks and things like underdog, shield mastery. So he can take that position safely for your team. And then your second brother that moves in and wants to get the finish with a sword or a cleaver, that brother never wants to be in melee with two enemies. So after I'm moving into the armor stripped enemy and hitting with a sword or cleaver and killing him, where am I putting him? If you want to get value out of Berserk, you have to put your damage brothers into compromised positions or build your defensive brothers with stats that compromise their ability to do their job. So this is probably not something you brought up because this is probably like a given for expert level play. When I watch like newer, intermediate, and even advanced players play, the specialization is less extreme. And so Berserk seems better if you're total new players, they just put their team in a flat line. And so when they get a kill, there's a second enemy next thing to swing at again. Well, that's not how we're approaching the game. So as specialization increases, you do better with weapon combos, like we talked about the other day. When you were you were taking your weapon combos to the extreme that you're dropping duelists on a lot of one-handed guys. Maybe for roleplay, maybe for power, just in order to really fill that niche and have one more perk. So rather than have that Berserk be that perk, you could take Xe, right? You could take Adrenaline. So like you could go in with Adrenaline. If I move in to get my attacks and I miss, the next turn I have to go first, kill the enemy, and get back to safety. So relying on that Berserk is often going to put you in situations when you move into a melee with two enemies, and then that second attack, you're hitting an enemy with full armor with your finishing weapon, your sword or your cleaver. You're hitting some with full armor chosen. It does nothing. Now you're locked in melee with a chosen. Another rotates in. All of a sudden, your damage brother that's has 17 defense is getting lit up because you're trying to get value out of Berserk. Some exceptions, right? So let's bring up. Let's say like a dodge quick hand style build. It's gonna look something like this, right? Axe, long axe, dodge quick hands. This brother is fine. You move him into melee, you get the kill. You can poke a second unit with the long axe. But in this guy, we've committed one, two, three perks to hit an irrelevant target with a reach weapon, which does like 60% damage of a two-hander. So really, your first attack is putting you in a good position, attacking a high priority target you've set up for a kill. And your second attack is going to be much lower value. The value you're generating from this perk is pretty low if you're playing the game at a high level, with some exceptions. I would say that Berserk is a specialist perk in the ancient deck. Does that kind of make sense, Doctor? Do you have any response or feedback on that?
Well, I will counter by saying one of the best damage dealers, the throwing spec. Berserk is so good because your target selection is excellent. Like on a thrower, I can't imagine. That's not true. Throwing tanks, I don't take Berserk. But assuming you're doing a standard thrower, Berserk is so good on that type of brother because you, unlike with a regular two-handed brother, you don't have to put your thrower in a compromising position. They can sit safely behind your other characters, and they have excellent target selection. Very likely they'll kill something. Throwing just does great damage, and then they can immediately target another enemy and get that value. So on thrower, it is amazing. I will also say the dodge quick hands type build. Really, I just consider it quick hands because you could. It doesn't have to be dodged in like Battle Force 2. I've done that before, where you have Berserk quick hands. It is a bit of a crutch. Like I do it a decent amount because when I don't do the positioning right, the quick hands bails me out, and you get some value out of being able to attack twice with those type of brothers at the beginning of the battle. I do like it, but it's not as good as swinging with the great axe in melee. The damage is significantly less, but you can do something with it, and it feels good to be doing something with your brother rather than trying to perfectly position everybody, and when you make a mistake it feels pretty bad to not attack. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think a build like this is one of the main reasons why Berserk should probably be in the B tier. Because Thrower is going to have something like these perks basically every run, right? And you get like two to pick from. A typical candidate, you're just going to push these buttons, and that's fine. But you might go like bags and guns. If you have access, get this out and guns and do double gunner stuff. You might go just like bags and XE if you have like a low fatigue candidate. You don't want to go this build, but if you have like a 95 fatigue, gambler with stars and melee range, you might get stuck with like this because you just can't support Zerk Frenzy. There are other things to do with perks that add value, but no, absolutely, this is kind of a build like this. Not exactly. This can be 9 lives or Colossus, right? Sometimes you can skip Pathfinder, sometimes you can take bags or you can take gifted, or sometimes you can skip Colossus and do like this. Like, don't get worried about the specifics. You want Zerk Frenzy in this build because, like the doctor said, you have a ton of range selection. And this is the unit you want, or target selection. Moving up and down your back row and kind of saying, I don't like the matchups on this part of the fight. Let me go add DPS there. Or I missed 2 attacks in a row on the left part of the fight. My RNG is, less than expected. Let's move my throwers over the left side of the fight and help out there. Can smooth the RNG out. So yeah, you want 2 of these, or 3, something like that most runs. So I think that I agree with you. Berserk should be somewhere in the B. Where do you think we put it, and do you have anything more to add on Berserk?
Well, folks love Berserk because for the very longest time it has been a great damage perk. Like Berserk Frenzy has been a build around since day one, and it is very satisfying. There is no denying how satisfying it is to swing once and then buffed up with Frenzy, swing again. There are certain scenarios and breakpoints where it can matter a great deal, but we always get into like these niche scenarios. So, for example, if you have a famed mace, one-handed mace duelist with like increased damage or increased armor pen, you could like one-shot ancient legionaries, which of course Zerg Frenzy is absolutely ridiculously amazing cases like that.
Mhm.
But you need a famed mace with increased damage, and you're not guaranteed to get those every run.
Mhm.
So like the value on a standard brother is like the only standard build where I consider it actually mandatory are the throwers, because you can always
Agree.
get value out of that. Any other brother, I only might have one or two. Uh, I think that's more optimal, just because, and it has to have quick hands, just because I make mistakes and quick hands will bail me out a little. I think in my latest run and even a run before that, I took too much berserk, relatively speaking. Like you can see some of the camps I'm clearing, it's just not as smooth. Like I have 0 fearsomes and quite a bit of
Mhm.
berserk. And it's just like I'm still winning and still winning reasonably comfortably, but it's not like the one-sided massacre of like, oh, a large camp with 25 nomads, or the large conscript armies. Like I have fearsome, they're just like, oh, I could probably auto battle and win. Without fearsome, I actually have to
Mhm.
try, and people could actually die. That's the difference.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So I think people get caught in old times for builds. Like at one point, a long time ago, Fearsome sucked. Um, Fatigue was really good. You know, he had the adrenaline, in-dam shenanigans. You had much fewer enemies that attacked Resolve and attacked HP directly. Battleforge was better. You just built everybody as high fatigue Battleforge Zerg Frenzy. Because it worked, but it doesn't work anymore. And with Rapnu, the game is so much faster, and you're winning scaling way faster with the move speed and the vision and the tools. And so the tempo stuff just keeps getting stronger. And this sort of like, yeah, if every person in your team looked like the lone wolf, you'd take a bunch of this. But and then like you said as well, diminishing returns. So I think that this putting Zerk on the C tier was just a troll. Like I didn't I mean, this first list that I made, I just woke up one morning before I even had my coffee, like 5 in the morning, maybe 7 or whatever. Put this list together and then went out to work out. Didn't think of it. And came back, was like, what did this little fishing trolling thing bring in? But now we're doing like a serious one, right? So yeah, I think somewhere in the B, I think my first blush would be to put it here, maybe above XD. I usually want like I say I usually want 1 to 3 berserks on my team of 12.
Interesting. It's playing an ad, by the way, but XC, yeah, I could see somewhere around there. I feel like I probably have like 3 to 5 or 4 to 6, somewhere around there. I'm not saying that's right. In fact, that very well might be wrong. I have a hard time moving away from the old paradigms, even though I could understand it intellectually. That doesn't mean like I always make the right decisions. In fact, with builds, I often like make suboptimal decisions. If I were gonna do fun build, Berserk is not a fun perk anyway, so I really should be picking something. It's so good on throwers, man. Like that already takes
Yeah.
up like 2 of your slots, and then maybe you
But
can have like 1 or 2 more.
I often end up with total trash brothers that I don't have the fatigue to support berserk on. So my throwers, I want to make this. My throwers much more often end up like this. I'll have just some trash unit, like a deserter or something I'm forcing into thrower, and like I just don't have the stats to make berserk work if I wanted to. I'm not gonna take her cover to make berserk work. That's just totally counterintuitive. I'll take like, Ascension and gifted and then bags, and they can throw potions or have a backpack shield and get value that way. Not because it's better than Berserk, but it's better on that brother. So I feel like sometimes it depends run by run too. Sometimes I end up like this, and then because I lean so heavily into Catals, I really don't have damage problems. Like the Mace Catal shenanigans. Like I slow myself down a bit in the desert buying 2 or 3 katals. The damage output from that is so insane. Like you just don't care about Berserk at all. Like I've done plenty of runs with no Berserk, um, and just not even noticed that I didn't have it.
All right,
But they're different approaches.
I think where you have Berserk is perfectly fine. It feels about right. Again, like just because I'm picking more Berserk does not mean that's good. In fact, I feel like it is not the right choice if I'm trying to min max perks, and I should be picking something else for fun anyway. So I'm satisfied with Berserk where it is.
Yeah, I think anywhere in the top half of B is fine. Like if you told me I should go between bags and adrenaline, or like between adrenaline and headhunter, like anywhere in here is I think fine.
Yeah, somewhere around there, wherever you want to put it. I'd probably put it lower than Battleforge though. I don't think it's better than Battleforge tanks, and Neutros is still so good.
Yeah, between Battleforge and Xe, I think it's. I mean, even I take Berserk more than Xe, so I shouldn't probably shouldn't probably be ranking Berserk lower than Xe. Yeah, I'm good with here. And then I think I would actually, me, I basically always take Zerk and Frenzy as a pair, or almost. Like,
It just
sometimes I'll squeeze in like a movement perk, but what are your thoughts on Frenzy? It seems like you're a little lower on it than me.
I do agree. I mean, the synergy is extraordinarily obvious, right? And in a way, if you don't take Berserk, Frenzy is only half the value, because you get
Mhm.
you proc Berserk, you get Frenzy right away, then you attack again. Next turn, you still have Frenzy. You get 2 turns. It's worth of Frenzy, and if you somehow manage to get a like two-handed weapon, you can swing that twice. Like that's double the value. If you have throwing weapon,
Mhm.
it's only plus 50% more value to combo Berserk. And so they clearly like synergize very well. Frenzy plus 25% damage is good, but the thing is, at the stage where you're using Frenzy, it is you have to consider the type of enemies you're fighting. So with enemies like Barbarian Chosen, if you're using two-handed weapons, you're probably three-shotting or maybe two-shotting, maybe. But does Frenzy sometimes reduce the return kill to a 2? Maybe. But sometimes it doesn't do that. And so the value of Frenzy on a lot of enemies is not actually clear. I have not done math to try to calculate this. I'm a very intuitive Battle Brothers player. I have never created any sort of calculation spreadsheets in Battle Brothers. And since you might know more about the details of breakpoints and so forth, but I just feel like there are so many enemies where it's not obvious that having frenzy actually kills them quicker. The two types of enemies that are immediately obvious to me are number one, goblins. If you
Mhm.
have crossbow or bow with frenzy, you almost, I don't know, I've ever seen like it not one shot a goblin, and that's great. Like
Mhm.
that could be a plus 100% damage buff since you have two bolts, you shoot one. That's amazing. Ancient Dead is another great example. Usually, when you have Frenzy up, you have a
Mhm.
crushing weapon like a mace or a two-handed hammer. Extremely likely to one-shot Ancient Legionnaire. You almost never one-shot them, well, the Fame one without Frenzy. In fact, I don't know the math, but I feel like I've pretty much never seen that happen. I don't know about flails though. I
Mhm.
haven't really used them enough to know. But the bottom line is, I do know with Frenzy up, you do one-shot a lot more Ancient Legionnaires, and that
Yeah.
breakpoint is very nice. But against a lot of other enemies, it is very unclear to me how much you're actually reducing the time, the number of swings to kill an enemy by, which also reduces its value. You're
Yeah,
also
it can change. Yeah, it can change hits to kill a lot on throwers, but because the game is so sandboxy, the question is how often do you in an actual fight get that kill earlier. I think that's not as often as you might think.
It does make a noticeable difference, I feel like, on the duelist throwers. I feel like with
Mm.
Frenzy up, again, I don't know the math. I'm not a person who calculates damage in battle royals, but it feels like when you have Frenzy that, and I say feel, I know it sounds very nebulous, but this is like 2,200 hours of feelings. So like the feeling, like I trust my feelings pretty well in battle brothers, and that throwing the barbarian throwing weapons with Frenzy does seem to do a significant amount more damage. And it
Mhm.
does seem to reduce the number of throws it takes to kill. I just can't give you a quantifiable number.
Yeah. But would you put this towards the bottom of B, or like where would you rank Frenzy then?
Well, by the criteria of your perk list, it would probably be B because I do take it a decent amount on my squad. I do like to have some frenzy. I do think it is good to have at least some. Like you ideally should have some throwers with frenzy, and it's good to have like one or two damage dealers with Zerk and frenzy to try to one shot like ancient dead or some
Mhm.
other enemies in like there's tremendous value in having one or two brothers who can do that. But the
Yeah,
more you
true.
have, the worse frenzy is. Like this is an anti-synergistic perk. Like Fearsome, the more you have,
Mhm.
the better it is. You want to take it on as many people as possible so you can mass route the enemy immediately. Whereas frenzy, since it only procs when you kill something, like if you're not actually killing stuff, the perk is completely useless. And
Yeah.
a lot of enemies, you're not going to be able to just consistently score kill on every single brother. So you really only want like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or something per, and that's like at the most per
Mhm.
party. Otherwise, it's just not doing anything for you.
Yeah, so I guess my question here is if you look at the C tier perks, if someone told me you had to do a run and you weren't allowed to use any of these perks except for one, which of these perks would you want to be allowed to use? If someone said, okay, all these C tier perks, you can't use any, except for you to pick one to promote and use. Would it be Frenzy?
Ooh, I could definitely not pick frenzy, but there would be like 3 perks probably in the C's here that I would want to use. Frenzy is not one of them.
Yeah, so you think the three perks in here are better than Frenzy?
Yes, actually, that's interesting. I
Okay.
actually think there's more than 3 that's better than frenzy. I think there's like
Yeah,
5
so
that's better than frenzy.
okay, so it's probably a like here-ish then, right? Mid-high C.
Sure.
We might promote a couple things to B too. Wouldn't be surprised there. So go ahead and you want to pick out what you think the next strongest perk out of the C tier list is then?
Oh, interesting. Oh boy, the next strongest perk. There are some perks that are like specific to my playstyle, but there are other perks that I think is just. I'll say Polearm Mastery should probably be. Honestly, I might promote that to a B. I really like Polearm Mastery. It's just
Probably,
it's
yeah.
so useful to have some Polearm guys. So reducing the AP cost of your main attack from 6 to 5 just opens up an absurd number of tactical options. I also
Mhm,
almost always want Pathfinder with a Polearm Brother. So no matter what the terrain is,
mhm,
I mean, your options are you can move twice, hit. You could stand still, swing, swap to a pocket shield, and gain that 20% defense from Peter's shield. That's
mhm,
pretty amazing. You can have a one-handed weapon in the inventory, so you swing once with the polearm, probably a bill hook, by the way. Like that's
mhm.
easily the best polearm because it does the most armor damage. You don't really want to use sword lances or musing as a meme, and it is very satisfying
Okay,
to watch a sword lance like triple decapitate. But like,
yeah.
it's not actually a good weapon. Anyway, so you have your bill hook, you hit, and then you swap to like a sword, something, swing. I've done that combo quite a bit, and it's
Yeah,
powerful.
me too.
I also personally like a crossbow pole arm hybrid. I'm not convinced the Polearm Mastery
Mhm.
really matters in that build, and is a bit of an older build. But something about that is just very satisfying to me
Mhm.
to do. You could also make a Polearm throwing hybrid, but it's not really a good build because like throwing is already such amazing damage. Polearm's not really contributing much. It's losing a perk for no good reason. But in theory, there is that the APs match up. So it's just reducing that 6 to 5 AP. It makes such a colossal difference. Oh, you could
Yeah.
have a pegs and belts, so throw nets, throw bombs. Like just too many
Mhm.
synergies with the cost reduction. And I love Polearm Mastery because of that.
I agree with that. So I think Polearm Mastery is a perk that people don't really understand or use very well. Like you said, it's about that one extra AP and all the clever things you can do because you could save that one AP. And I think you gave a pretty good list there. I kind of wanted to snowball off that and add to why we both think that swordlances are not that good, and I'll kind of give my perspective. Or at least I'll say they're overrated. They're very situational. So we compare swordlance to throwing in terms of backline damage. To to compete to be at the same level, the Billick's going to have to hit. I'm going to say three targets most of the swordlance is going to have to hit three targets most of the time and two targets some of the time to even be equal to a throwing and damage output. On top of that, isolating killing one target at a time is almost always going to be better than splitting that damage. Even if in a world you could guarantee you're always hitting three enemies with your Swordlance Reap, it's not clear that it's better than a thrower. The second thing is, if you're positioning your team in such a way that you're constantly having three enemies in a row, that probably means your positioning is not very good. As you get better in the game, you find less fights where you're letting like three enemies attack one of your guys, or you have two defense brothers adjacent to each other and they're tanking three enemies. Those situations become much more rare as you get better at the game. And that's going to never happen. But the times when a Storylance is going to be able to output damage that competes with throwing in terms of a backline build are pretty rare. Frontline, there can be times you want to run Storylance. We kind of talked about a build that looked something like this, right? Where you have like a generic duelist with Plum. You could run a sword lance on this build, and that'd be fine. Maybe some fights you run a sword lance, some fights you run a bill hook, and you switch based on the enemy you're fighting. Um, and of course, there are niche scenarios where like you have a huge drunk wildman with 3-star attack, 3-star fatigue, and -10 defense, and a famed, war side. Yeah, of course you're gonna run a backline sword lance then. But it's more of a niche build than one that you want to find your way into. Is that kind of align with your thinking, Deductor?
Yeah, I agree. I have a Swordlance brother on my latest run. I'll tell you when he can do damage. When he has to mushroom, the like orc
Yeah.
mushroom, then he's amazing. Otherwise, he doesn't seem to do anything. I mean, it's
Right.
very satisfying to watch the decapitations. I try to in the easy fights, like have him like try to decapitate enemies.
Mhm.
Like it's a meme. It doesn't actually.
Yeah. And a lot of times, so when I've seen players who really love sword lances, they're just not playing an expert, right? If you're gonna jump into like a veteran high run, you start with a seated lion that's like dexterous. Yeah, you can buy a sword lance day one with 85 melee attack, and your fights are against 4 cutthroats, and you one shot them. But that's not the same game we're playing. The game that we're playing, you're trying to find ways to beat hard enemies early. Or sword lance is more of a way to beat easy enemies in the mid game. So it's just not doing what you really want to do in terms of like snowballing by constantly taking harder fights. Because it excels against large amounts of weak enemies, which you're probably going to beat anyways by the time you want to buy a sword lance and have level 5 for mastery.
To close
Anything else
out,
to add? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, to close out my thoughts on the um, Polearm mastery. I think I underuse it. I could easily see playing a company with 3 or 4 brothers with Polearm mastery, and they would have all sorts of other tricks in their inventory
Mhm.
to complement that. They would not be using the polearm as their only weapon. They would have to. They would all pretty much have quick hands and some sort
Mhm.
of additional shenanigan pocket, and I
Yeah.
think that can be extremely strong. I think I don't use it enough though, but I think that could be very entertaining to do if there's another if I do another run, but don't know when I'm gonna do that with Menace coming out in like
Yeah. Let's see what perk I think here is better than Frenzy. I actually don't really like cleavers. Maybe I'm wrong. Um, I think Resilience good, but it's a one of perk. Actually, I think that of this list, I think that Frenzy is probably the best. What else did you have in mind as for you being better than it?
oh, for me it would be Taunt. I love
Okay,
Taunt.
can you
I
explain
love
why
at
that is?
least one Taunt brother. I think it's S tier to have one Taunt brother. And my
Hmm.
game suffers when I don't have at least one Taunt brother. I don't have that in my latest run, and I just feel so limited. It's just some
Hmm.
things like is just so much harder without the one Taunt brother. However, I suppose you could probably use 2, maybe. I've never had 2, but any more than that would be insane. Like 1 taunt is S tier. 2 taunts, I guess, is okay. See, any more than that is insane and is just objectively bad unless you want to do some sort of roleplay
Hmm.
nonsense. 1 taunt, choppy cat, 1 taunt is S tier. Any more than that is terrible. Um,
You're gonna rank it with like Lone Wolf and Rally. That's like a for you mandatory one of them. What do you use it for? That's that
yeah,
powerful.
yeah. I have not taken it on my latest run, so it's not mandatory. But there are so many uses. Okay, let's consider Necro Savants. Yeah, 1 taunt. It's equivalent of having like infinite nets for 1
Hmm.
brother, infinite 2 nets. So you've already like controlled 2 Necro Savants. Out of let's say 8 Necro Savants you're fighting, 25% of them already dealt with. That's great. That's by far the simplest example. Other examples include let's say there is some high value enemy, for example, an
Hmm.
assassin who does nonsense like footwork and are general pain. Well, with taunt, there's nothing to worry about. Like, assassin's is going to go on your taunt tank, and you can, go off and annihilate the rest of the enemies. You could also pretty safely surround the assassin and dagger and not have to worry about the assassin kind of sneaking a kill or something, even if you don't have a mace, like you can't land a mace stun or something like that. So high value targets, whether it's assassin, hedge knight, something you want to, a barbarian champion, something you want to control, um, having that one taunt to act as that control in those fights is incredibly valuable. You have to be very careful about how you use taunt uh,
Hmm.
because it doesn't it the how do I explain this? The way it works is if you are directly adjacent to a brother, to an enemy with your taunt brother, like if you're in their zone of control, you taunt them, it works great. But if an enemy is not within your brother's zone of control, they have to not be in the zone of control of someone else. So,
Hmm.
the classic examples I try to do is I try to taunt like a barbarian or some sort of enemy who can move 1 and attack, but then I would taunt and then step back 1. So basically, I force them to waste a turn where they can't attack and they have to try to zone my taunt brother. And then you
Oh.
can kill, like, he's going to run up right in your face. And then you can use all your DPS to kill that guy who literally wasted his turn. And you probably can't repeat because everybody else is probably in contact, but there could be situations where you might be able to like manipulate that. It's really hard to like explain without like trying to demo it in a battle, and I do that. I like to think, in my previous series. What else? It's good against lindworms. Like
Mhm.
the head will attack your taunt tank, and then your taunt tank doesn't actually have to be in the zone of the lindworm. Someone else could be in the zone. So that shenanigan is an option. What else? I feel like there are other uses for it. I tried to taunt a lindworm in literally my
Mhm.
last video ever uploaded in Battle Brothers to YouTube, and it broke their A. Didn't broke the AI, broke the game. Like the lindworm body and tail
Gotcha.
split up, so it can cause bugs if you're into bugs.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my major thoughts. I absolutely just love one taunt.
Yeah, I think that's I think I probably underused Taunt then. It kind of I think it maybe does more things than I give it credit for. I'm actually gonna add one more example. In our co-op run, we took Taunt and we saw that Undead Camp had a fallen hero. I think we were level 4 or 5 on our team. We took it on a fodder tank in order to just lock down a fallen hero while we daggered it. I think that was a really good use of Taunt. So for me, I think I'm missing a couple of things that you do. Is that I pick Taunt specifically if I'm going to fight either a fallen hero or neck response, and I don't have a solution. So it's something if I'm going to float a perk point and maybe take Taunt if I have to. I don't really care about 8 neck response because by the time 8 neck response spawn, I probably have other tricks to deal with them. But again, I'm relying usually very, very heavily on Mason Catal, which solves a lot of the same problems that um, Taunt might solve. Because if I would have 3 or 4 stun bots in the mid game, and so things like neck response are you're gonna find 2 or 3 before you leave the desert, or maybe leaving does the desert day 35-ish, depending on the run, 30 to 40. I'm probably not going to see neck response again until I'm level 8 or 9. At that point, um, the taunt's not as relevant. But yeah, I think building a taunt tank is maybe something like a taunt guy, even like a backstabber taunt guy. Like there's probably cool things to do with like a positioning a damage brother safely and taunting into that 3 tile surround and destroying with backstabber. Probably a lot of really cool things you could do with taunt I haven't thought of. So I think that your placement's correct, and I'm underutilizing it.
That's
I'm sure there's other perks that are S tier one ofs.
an interesting idea to take it on a non-tank. I have not personally tried that, but it could be interesting. You could still get a lot of the same value, like
Mm-hmm.
forcing the enemy to go where you want. That's probably like you have to study the initiative bar very carefully, understand the movement orders of the enemy. But if you can do that, like other other powers of taunt, no, I'm just rambling on and on. But if you study the initiative order very carefully, there are situations where you taunt the enemy, they come in and sort of plug the gap, and the rest of the enemies mill about and do nothing. It's again, it's
Interesting.
kind of hard to explain unless I should go try to find like a video of mine in the past where I've done that to great effect. In fact, I might try to do that on my other monitor from one of my older series. But uh, yeah, yeah, that's I see a comment from Choppy Cat about I don't trust taunt that it really guaranteed to change the enemy AI. That is a reasonable fear. The way taunt works behind the scenes, it adds a certain amount of aggro to an enemy, but and this value aggro affects like what brother they want to target, like the AI wants to target. So because your taunt tank should have high aggro when to use taunt, that enemy will preferably attack your taunt tank, but it's not guaranteed. The most common situations where taunt might fail is number one, your tank has way too good of a defense. You taunt in shield wall because they can't hit you, they will prioritize another target. You see this with necrosavants. And the other one is like if your another brother's almost dead, sometimes a taunt isn't strong enough to override the AI preference for that. So you do have to be a little careful with how you use taunt in those situations, but that's not the real power. The real power is like force the AI to go somewhere that you want it to. and in the right situation, it can be super clutch.
Yeah, so I think I'm comfortable with that, next to Lone Wolf and next to Rally, which are like one of, and I mean, Lone Wolf, you can maybe have two or three if you really want to, but usually it's a one or two of Taunts and one of Rally, yeah. I think that's a good place. I think, do you think Resilience better than Frenzy? Or do you
Yes,
have anything else to add for Taunt?
I do think it's better than Frenzy. I personally love Resilient, and I feel like I'm
Mhm.
suffering on my latest run by not taking Resilient. I think very few brothers. I
Mhm.
personally, I might be one of the few people who think Resilient is amazing, and I always regret. Like it always feels so bad when I don't have Resilient, and it feels so good when I do. And it is not specifically against Hex. My
Okay.
I take Resilient on very specific type characters. It's the ones who absolutely need the initiative. So any sort of relentless
Mhm.
character, I strongly would prefer to have Resilient. I can't always do it, but anyone with the more initiative perks you have, the more I feel like you have to have Resilient, and it protects you against all those effects that like annihilate your initiative, your stagger, your daze, your
Mhm.
Hex and Charm, of course. The effect against days is actually like insanely strong. One of
Mhm.
my most feared enemy in the game are assassins. It's not even like anything else. That is the
Mhm.
one enemy type in the entire game that I'm always terrified of, almost no matter what. And those days grenades, like I could have sworn there was a battle I did in my latest series where that assassin threw a daze grenade, and I think he did it once, maybe twice. I think it was just once, and I didn't position very well. So like five brothers got hit, and they all got like minus 25% damage for 2 turns. It was so monumentally bad. That entire flank, I don't know how it didn't collapse. There was like a hero
Mhm.
dog who like tanked so many hits and did not die. Like Ritter, the war dog, the most amazing war dog of all times, safely like in my inventory now. Never be using Battle again. But the days cause such massive problems, and Resilient is a solution for that. When you have Relentless and Resilient, you should usually be able to go ahead in the enemy. So if they debuff you, just wait, right? You're gonna wait anyway with Relentless. There's no reason not to. The debuff goes away the next turn. So like you're immune to debuffs. It's so amazing because debuffs are one of the few ways your brothers could actually die in the late game. And Resilient solves that. Bleeds, like Nimble Brothers, are very weak to bleeds, and that cuts
Yeah.
bleed damage in half. Uh, I just like I just personally love Resilient. And in my latest series, I think I hardly even took Resilient. I didn't really do much with initiative. I don't really take Resilient unless I do a lot with initiative. It just feels weak. Like the brothers, they have personality, sure, but it's just it's not I can feel the difference. Like it's not as strong
Mhm.
as they would be. So I would definitely
Yeah.
take Resilient over Frenzy, but brother has to be like heavily invested in initiative.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said. I do have some counterpoints though. Um, the first being that let's say we look at like a typical Sins relentless build. And it's maybe a little different, maybe kind of like the way you build yours. So these are like the perks I feel like I kind of need to make the brother work, right? Something like this.
Yeah, something like
But I
that.
want like this is like a generic list. And something like Viper, who let's say I don't need gift on Viper. I'm gonna go like XD. I could full greed for damage and go like Headhunter. Each of these being about 8% more damage across all enemy types. But a generic one looks like this. So I think 9 lives for resilient. I guess makes you stronger versus some things weaker versus others. So I often do this, or like a build like this. Like I feel like all of these last two perks take on this build are kind of just exactly what your team needs to round out. So my thought, my kind of counterpoint, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just giving the other side, is that if you position your Relentless Brothers very carefully, I would say mine get attacked an average of less than once a fight. So I really don't care so much about stuff like days or like nets or vines, bleeds, poisons. I think they don't affect me that often. But maybe that's arrogance. Maybe that's arrogance speaking, and I should just be taking resilient on them. I guess it's competing with an S tier perk for the same slot. Like if 9 lives didn't exist, I'd probably rank resilient like mid high B. But 9 lives does exist. Like now we have this. Like you wouldn't add resilient to this list, would you?
Well, I might drop Colossus for resilient, but
Colossus
well,
for resilient.
you still have you have one extra perk, right? Why not Colossus 9 lives resilient?
I mean, this is instead of gifted, if the brother can afford it, if you can hit like decent attack and defense and initiative. Yeah. So maybe I'm underranking a bit because, to your point, how often is initiative brother in trouble and it didn't involve some sort of multi-turn effect? Never being stunned, never being dazed, never being charmed or hacked. Flies from goblins, never being hit by flies. Yeah, I'm okay with resilient being the best C tier perk, maybe. I think if you told me I had to do a no resilient challenge run, I think it wouldn't be that much harder. Kind of like brow. If you weren't allowed to use brow, you would just use 9 lives instead. But it's 9 lives is often just better. I guess sometimes resilient is better than 9 lives on specific initiative brothers, is your point, right?
That's interesting because like I agree 9 lives is better than Brow. For me, not taking Brow would be a not even really much of a challenge. As long as I have 9 lives, whereas not taking resilient, like
Mhm.
I've barely taken it in my latest run, and I can just feel it. It doesn't feel quite right. Let me open my previous Better Brothers on my other monitor. I want to load
Mhm.
up my Varangiangar series and count how many resilient I took. Oh, I guess starting Battle Brothers.
And
I move this to my
I have a
second
hypothesis.
monitor.
All that loads up, I have a hypothesis for what's driving the difference, and I think it's the same thing between both brow and resilient. I tend to avoid building reserves. I tend to just build 12 generic brothers and just kind of run at the game. And I might have a couple of reserves and like Beast Slayers or whatever. And so having Colossus and the brow type perks that prevent injuries is more important when you're running a small roster. Whereas when you have reserves, you can skip Colossus for resilient, and just switch out brothers if you get injured. Same thing with brow. So I think what exactly you want your run to look like.
Ah, okay. I'm sorry. I loaded up my old save. I only took 2 resilient. That's actually quite shocking, in my opinion. Oh, I remember. I there was a brother who I really wanted to take resilient, but I couldn't for some reason. Must have been a roleplay reason of some sort. I think I went headhunter on him, something like that. What else? I didn't actually make that many pure initiative brothers, but on the 2 that I did, I definitely took resilient. I also didn't take it on my mace bro. Oh right, there is this bro I took crippling strikes on for because of roleplay reasons. That brother could have used. Oh, he has 2 perks. I should probably assign
Hmm.
like relentless
Yeah,
resilient. Why
very
did I
good.
float 2 perks? I have no earthly idea. There's another brother who could probably benefit from resilient. Again, I floated 2 perks for some bizarre reason, but it's the quick hands, a polearm type, probably resilient duelist or something like that. A lot of headhunter. It must be because people were chopping off heads. But just be like, that sounds fun. But okay. So that run I didn't take resilient very much. Let me check my another one.
Let me go grab a drink real quick. I'll be right back if you want to carry the conversation for like 2 minutes, please.
Sure. Hmm. Okay, there's one. Klaus. 2, 3, 4. Yep, there we go. That seems about right. 4 resilient seems about right. I took one on a nimble tank of all characters. Yeah, it makes sense to me. You gotta be immune to the bleeds. But yeah, the characters with relentless almost always have resilient to guard against any of the initiative debuffs. I'm just looking at my initiative. So all the characters who have good initiative, except for Tormach for some reason. Oh, because he was Forge. He was Nimble Forge, so he didn't need Resilient. But if I didn't have Forge, I would have taken Resilient there. Yeah, that seems about right in my mind. Yeah, it was 5 Resilient Brothers out of 20 total. Is that right? That seems about right. So this was the Anatomus. This was me trying super hard, and I felt like I picked perks mostly for their min max value, and I picked a lot of resilient scenario. Oh, that's that.
Back.
So I was just loading my old saves and saying in my Anatomus run where I was trying my hardest, I took 5 resilient out of 20 brothers. So, and they were
Yeah.
all the initiative brothers.
Yeah, so I guess my thoughts on Resilient here, I think if you look at like the 20 best players, I think you probably have the highest opinion of it, and I probably have the second highest opinion of it. We both use initiative a lot. There are other approaches in the game that don't use initiative, and therefore don't rely on Resilient as much. People that are big fans of spears um, tend to use less initiative that I've seen. I think I'm fine with it. The best C tier perk. Maybe I'm underrating it. But I think both of us have a little maybe idiosyncratic play styles. So kind of trying to wait for that and not have it be like a sins deductor, be like a hey, all the best players. I haven't really seen anyone other than me or you really taking resilient. Have you watched anyone else that takes it?
No, I've never. I feel like uh, I feel like I'm its biggest champion, but it is only good, in my opinion, on initiative brothers. You're really relying on that initiative, and the value is very questionable to non existence otherwise.
Yeah. And one thing with resilient as well is there's actually one bug with it. Resilient doesn't work if you have the bleeder trait. The bleeder applies after. So normally bleed is 2 turn. With resilient it makes it 1. Bleeder perk makes bleeds 3 turns. You have both. The bleeder perk debuff applies after resilient because it's spaghetti code. You still get a 2 turn bleed. You actually cannot really effectively use resilient to get rid of bleeder on a brother, but you can use it to get rid of ailing. I think best CT perk I'm fine with. I think you convinced me to want to use taunt and resilient more if I ever get around to doing another Battle Brothers run. Not because I disagree with you about resilient, but just because I think based on the variety of playstyles, there's a lot of very good people at the game who just don't take it. And I take it maybe once a run. You take it 2 to 5. Uh, that's you know. So for you, it's probably like you personally, it's probably like a high B, right?
Yeah, I personally love it, but I also acknowledge that that's just my particular playstyle, and I don't have any quantifiable metrics to give
Yeah.
about that. Except on my latest run, when I hardly ever took Resilient, hardly made Initiative Brothers, it just feels a lot worse and it feels a lot harder.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next. I bet you think Cleaver Mastery is better than Frenzy as well. Was that one of them?
Yeah, I do think Cleaver is better. Cleavers are high damage, and I personally like the Whip Disarm. I know it's not very reliable. I would like a backup option. I don't like to rely on the Whip Disarm solely, but it can be nice in some situations. So all those situations are pretty one. So in that way, it is kind of questionable. But
Mhm.
it's fun for trying to dagger a barbarian king champion.
Yeah.
But the real reason is not whips. The real reason is cleavers are excellent damage. They tend to be extremely fatigue intensive. So
Mhm.
all cleavers you can attack with twice. So you do save a decent amount of fatigue there. You also extend the bleed, like you do more bleed
Mhm.
damage with it. So that can matter uh, in certain situations, especially against the southern conscripts, for example. Bleeds are amazing against them. They often bleed
Mhm.
out. Unfortunately, bleed procs at the end of the turn and not beginning, so you get to attack, and that's not great. That's not great. But cleavers are still very high damage weapons. So
Yeah.
I feel like I always have like two cleaver brothers, mostly for the damage. Um, and it's just good weapon.
Yeah. So my thought on Cleaver is that in a world with Catals, why would I want to build Cleavers? I guess the answer is the Catal is a you're full command meta. You're not going them. Like one Catal guy feels kind of bad. Kind of need two or three. Um, I like to play on initiative a lot, and Cleaver uses so much fatigue. It's really hard to get the stats you need. Like have a Cleaver guy with initiative. It's not impossible, but I think it's something you don't find very often. Um, yeah, Cleavers have some utility. They have some damage. They're one of the most common famed in the game. There's one and two hand variants. You can do quick hand shenanigans with pole arms if you want to. So they are good if you're playing like a combo setup and using like mace and hammer and flail newts and cleaver guys with adrenaline as damage, or maybe relentless. That's a good way to play. So I'd probably underuse cleavers because of my playstyle, and I think that's a reasonable place to put them.
I agree. I do think Katals are better. I hardly ever use Katals. I really should use them more. I do think they're cool. I have so little patience hanging around the south trying to buy those Katals, whereas cleavers are common.
Yeah, exactly. I think Catals don't really fit the way you enjoy the game because you enjoy having a lot of like weird, like idiosyncratic brothers doing weird things. That's how you have fun. And Catal really relies on that mass synergy, and so you kind of commit to having like three or four Mace brothers and two or three Catals to get the best use out of it. And that's I think not kind of cookie cutter type team. I think not really fun for you to play.
That's a very good point. I can't imagine making a team like that. Not because it's not good. I think it would be pretty OP, but I like variety.
Yeah, yeah. Backstabber. I don't use Backstabber much just because of the way I approach the game. So Backstabber is probably better than I give it credit for. But I almost never take this perk. But I bet you would rank Backstabber, and it is probably better than Frenzy as well. Would you agree?
I agree. I did. Oh, okay. So backstabber. I feel like I overvalue it. It's not as good as I had hoped. So in my latest run, I my rule was I could only hire one background or one brother of each background. Period. So if I
Mhm.
hire a farmhand and he has 52 attack, well, that's it. No more farmhands. I don't want to dismiss him, so I have to do something with it. I have a lot of brothers who are just terrible attack, but I still need damage. So I go fast adaptation, something, and then backstabber in the hopes that it would buff their hit chance enough. Now, fast adaptation does a lot and it makes a big difference, but I feel like I did overvalue backstabber personally. It's not nearly as amazing as I had hoped, and it doesn't feel like it did quite enough. I think I made a mistake in taking too much backstabber. I took so much backstabber in my latest run. I should have done a lot more with relentless shenanigans rather than backstabber shenanigans. Uh, so uh,
Mhm.
uh, Backstabber has all sorts of limitations. I mean, the most obvious one is you have to have two brothers be in the zone of enemy for it to proc. if you have a reach weapon like a polearm, that um, bonus only comes from the brothers next to the enemy. So, for example, if you have two brothers
Mhm.
next to an enemy, that's plus 5% from surround. If you have backstabber on your polearm mastery, it's only another plus 5%. So that's like often you're getting 5% extra accuracy from
Mm.
that. Sometimes you get 10%. You're not getting more than 10%. Let's be real. In any fight that matters, you are not getting more than 10%. So it is a conditional, usually 5, at most 10% accuracy, which again is pretty good. Is there are only 3 ways in this game to get accuracy: pass adaptation, gifted, and backstabber. So sometimes you just need it to hit. But I don't know. I feel like I overvalued it. The um the one case where I think backstabber is mandatory is in the early game for a mace expert. I will take fast
Ooh.
adaptation and then into backstabber because that mace stun absolutely needs to land with 95%. Like it is anything lower than 95% is not acceptable to me because you need that stun on that clutch turn. And I don't care what I have to give up, that they have to land that stun, period. Outside of that, it's probably like I probably overvalue.
Yeah, so I think we're pretty much on the same page about Backstabber. I did want to elaborate a little bit. Backstabber is a perk that I think newer players overrate because you kind of walk through how it doesn't really work as described with pull-ups, right? You're committing 3 brothers to hit one enemy to get plus 10 attack. That plus 10 attack's not great, right? If you have 2 in melee or 2 in melee and 1 in the back, you're committing 3 brothers to one enemy to get 5 attack. That's not very good. And plus 5 attack, fast adaptation is not. Backstabber has anti-synergy with fast adaptation, right? So the lower your attack is, the more fast adaptation does. Taking fast adaptation into backstabber is like you're getting like 4.2 attack out of backstabber or something, making a number up, but it's mid-low 4 is what you actually get. So is that worth a perk? Maybe in certain situations it is. Or if you're going to full surround like a brigand leader to dagger him or something, then it can be. Sure. But the fast adaptation being the accuracy you perk right, you take right away, it gives you that tempo. Then taking backstabber comes almost when you're towards the end of the hardest part of the game, right? The hardest part of the game is like the first handful of fights. If you've already taken fast in like 9, or like if you just have to hit, you do this. This is when you're starting to get ahead of the curve, like in here. So there is a little bit less value in kind of backstabber coming later. But then overall positioning, right? So if you want to get value out of backstabber and something like a fatigue neutral, I think you're taking the wrong perk in general. Because you want the information over whether or not that attack connects before you commit your damage brothers. You want to kind of like have your defense brothers in front and your damage brothers kind of floating behind. Then let's say you have 4 defense brothers, 3 of their attacks land, and you can commit your 3 damage brothers onto the enemies that have already been armor stripped. If you're forced to move your fast damage brother up and then wait to get that backstabber value on the newt, for example, then your initiative brother or your damage brother with high initiative and like the finishing weapon like a sword or a cleaver actually has to attack before you're fatigue neutral. You've totally messed up the order you're supposed to attack enemies in and forced yourself to commit a damage brother without information. Using a defense brothers outside of like an emergency stun bot, or like you're just hard committing to hitting that stun with your guys, I think is a mistake. But to me, it's a perk you have to take on damage brothers just for positioning reasons. They're just better accuracy perks to take on defense brothers. The way that I play the game, I tend to make my best early hires in the damage brothers, because they're very cheap to build. Most origins give you really good starting brothers, or at least like 1 or 2. you're gonna get one or two more good bros early in general. I'll just make all my best brothers into some sort of like early game damage brother. And so backstabber is like becomes less necessary. Just the playstyle reason. If you have a different playstyle on how you're allocating your early game brothers, then backstabber could be better. So does that do you have any kind of responses to that, Doctor?
No, I agree with everything you just said. I took a lot of backstabber on my latest run, and I don't think backstabber did as much as certainly like relentless would have been a better pick on many of those
Mm-hmm.
brothers, especially if I level initiative just that little extra bit, like a little bit extra
Mm-hmm.
initiative, and then with relentless, we could probably do some sort of shenanigan to like outspeed the AI and control the battlefield so much easier. Backstabber, like you said, the major downside is you have to commit your brothers to get value out of that. And wow, now your brother's committed, and
Mm-hmm.
you're so much less flexible in terms of your options. Flex
Right.
flexibility is like the more options you have, the better.
Correct. Yeah. So backstabber is forcing you into positions and play styles that might not be the most effective to take advantage of it. So you'd rather have the generic accuracy perks of like free from gifted or whatever you're gonna get from fast adaptation, or even the damage from like Xe, right? Like these perks can be a lot of damage. Xe, obviously Fearsome, Duelist. There's a lot of ways to generate damage. Adrenaline, Headhunter. That can be less traditional, or the conditions are less expensive to meet than Backstabber.
Right, exactly. Except for that
Any other perks
stun
you want to
bot,
put?
you gotta have
Yeah, go ahead.
backstabber. But okay, next perk. Let's
Yeah.
see. Is there anything else that would go ahead of frenzy? I really don't think so. I think this is about right.
Now, do you want to put anything ahead of these weapon masteries before we kind of talk about the three weapon masteries? I think they're kind of roughly comparable, maybe, or maybe
Not,
not.
not really. I think I wouldn't put any of the rest ahead of the weapon masteries. Oh,
ASMR. What's gonna blow up? Did I touch my microphone or something? Okay, Twitch chat's going crazy.
I don't know what they're talking about. Ear licking. No. King?
Yeah. I think this order is right for the three weapon masteries. Do you agree?
Yeah, that seems about right. Axes, they're just so common. Swords, you don't really need mastery, and they're fine. Hammers, kind of like axes, you don't really need mastery, and they're fine. So, or they're kind of like swords, you don't need mastery, fine. So yeah, this all seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, so when it says swords don't mean mastery, I think the most common use of swords for me is a lot of my team in the mid game, like let's say a level 4 to 7-ish before I start to get better weapons. And you can be double gripping scimitars and armoring swords. Because they cost you don't need mastery to have low fatigue. They have +10 to hit. Hitting consistent and you're fighting like brigands and zombies. The swords are pretty good damage profile. Um, I think in general but you don't need mastery for it, right?
I agree.
That's the whole point of the point of using the sword is sword without mastery is the same as a mastered weapon. The I'm gonna throw a build up here real quick that does want sword mastery. And it's gonna be a relentless V100 build that I've really enjoyed. This build does a really good job of making use of like brother with a lot of primary stats and a lot of secondary stats, a lot of HP, fatigue, initiative, and not a lot of attack or defense. So these are kind of the perks I would recommend on it. It's a relentless build, right? So you're leveling a knit, fatigue, and HP, and you're skipping ones in both attack and defense to have a ton of secondaries. So it's a really good build that leverages commonly found brothers that might not have other good uses. At least in terms of playing around the initiative. This build is meant to be a great sword build. So, I mean, you have another perk you could use for resilience. You don't need Colossus. You could take Gifted. You could take Reach Advantage. You could take Berserk on this build if you have a ton of fatigue. So, is this build alone worth rating Great Sword higher for? I don't know, but this is, I guess, just a use case of when I would actually take Sword Mastery. And then the Lone Wolf as well sometimes wants it because you start with that long sword.
This build is very similar to the Geralt build that I do. Uh,
Mhm.
Relies on initiative being the most important thing. This is a build where I for sure take resilient.
Yeah, yeah, I could see Resilient instead of like Colossus Gifted. But just depending on the team and the bro. Yeah, so there's a couple use cases for Great Sword, but in general, I feel like you want to build around the Great Sword if you find one early, or find a brother that really suits this build. Even like a Nomad with like good secondaries and no stars and attack and defense, like a 61 melee attack, 7 melee defense, no star brother. This can be a good build for, because you just have a good way to leverage his stats when he whiffs on the melee attack and defense. Um, yeah, I think. What do you think about Hammer Mastery? Do you think that should be above or below Sword? Because there's probably more builds that want to use Hammer Mastery.
That's quite an interesting question in terms of like if we're just talking about weapons and not the actual perk. I use swords way more than hammers,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
Just like
especially in
the
the
builds that
mid.
want the perk.
Yeah. So, and the mastery of swords, it doesn't really do that much. Whereas hammer mastery kind of suffers from the same problem, where
Mm,
it doesn't really do too much. Like on the two-handed hammers, it reduces fatigue a little and it makes the round swing a little better, but you're hardly ever using that AOE anyway.
mm,
I remember on the one-handed hammer, the fatigue reduction is extremely substantial, so that alone like
yeah,
justifies it. But it also makes it demolish armor like insane. Uh,
yeah.
so there could be a good justification to like as a sort of specialized build, the shield and hammer knight type brother can be very
Mhm,
powerful, and the mastery there has a much bigger impact on the effectiveness of the brother over sword mastery. So
mhm.
if we're thinking from that perspective, hammer mastery should probably be ahead of sword. Um,
So yeah, I think there's just more builds. I know Hammer Shield I think is kind of specialized. Not really an early game patch build, right? Because early game hammers aren't that great. Like you don't want to be fighting brigands and zombies with a hammer shield. You'd rather use a sword or a mace. It's more like once you get towards the late game and you have a brother with attack, but not really any defense, and Hammer Shield's a good way to make use of him. Or Hammer Duelist, which is the best damage output in the game into I think both Chosen and Ancient Dead, excluding Catal's. So there's probably three good Hammer builds. Um, I guess Hammer Neutrals want Hammer Mastery. And I like to build the Lone Wolf something like this. A Lone Wolf specific build. Like this. You can run in, hit them, Adrenaline AoE, and you can keep the stacks of reach advantage up for a while. You basically get 2 turns of reach advantage. But this is a build that needs pretty. You basically only get on this build on a Lone Wolf and the Lone Wolf Origin. Um, Candidates for it are not things you're going to find very often. But that's an origin you can pick. It's a hard origin, so I think that's worth mentioning.
yeah, it's quite interesting. I've never made a build quite um, like I've never had a predator with a two-handed hammer that just runs off and do their own thing. I wouldn't feel comfortable
I think
doing that.
it's the Lone Wolf Origin, not the Lone Wolf Perk. You still play with your team. Yeah, the one
Oh,
with Origin. Sorry.
I see. So you do it on your lone wolf. Okay, okay, on the lead
Hmm.
character. I see. It's interesting. Again, they do have the defense to really benefit from reach advantage. That's quite
Hmm.
does look quite fun.
I think something like this is a pretty strong way to play the lone wolf, but the whole flank hammer idea, I don't know why that's still around. That's been bad for like 5 years now.
Yeah, I don't know either. I like hammers as a weapon. I always against heavily armored enemies, I always have like one or two hammers. They're in the middle. Links.
Yeah, yeah. So, excuse me, using them like a tank. I guess it's like more of a trial mod type thing. 1 second. Yeah, it's more of like a trial mod, like really strong brothers. You can't really get away with that kind of thing if you're playing fast.
I could see that. Yeah.
Um, what perk would you rank next then?
Ooh, out of these next five, I would I want to put rotate ahead, but it probably should be overwhelm. I like overwhelm where it is. Now, overwhelm's also a very strange perk. This is a perk where if you were to make a run where every one of your brothers had very good initiative, like you level up initiative like every level or something, and then you just have fast adaptation to hit. Like you might even skip leveling melee attack. No, that's insane. But like my point is, the more overwhelm you have, and the more initiative, like the more brothers you have with it who have good initiative, the more insane this perk becomes. It stacks, by the way, all the way up to 10x. So like you could reduce a swordmaster champion to a 0% hit chance or 5% with this. Like the stacking effect is actually absolutely insane. But overwhelm is held back by the fact that you have to attack before the enemy attack, and you can't abuse the real power of relentless, which is to wait, see what the AI does, and then double move. If
Hmm.
overwhelm applied the next turn, this would be a S tier perk. I think that would be way
Oh
too
yeah,
OP.
yeah.
But the fact is, the reason why this is held back so badly is you have to act immediately. And so often you need to see what the AI does. And when you set up your double kill while you're killing,
Hmm.
and then overwhelm has at that point no value. Like it
Right.
goes against the style you want to do, which is to focus all your damage one or two enemies, kill them first. You don't want to
Hmm.
spread out your damage across the entire team and debuff them all like 20%. That's bad. And that's
Yeah.
why overwhelm is not great. Like it makes your play style bad.
Correct. Yeah. I think of overwhelm as like a worse nine lives. It's a hedge for initiative damage brothers. Like you want to go in with like, I mean, let's say like an initiative build, right? If you have the absolute mandatory stuff and something like this, that we don't even need, right? If I jump an enemy and double puncture him, I have to move him in place, then I'm gonna get some defense. Opens up some lines of play. Like you could send your Katalgayak one-on-one to a chosen, and he's gonna be more likely to be okay in that. But you're making like a bad line of play mediocre. Like you'd be better off quick hands throwing a net and just stalling that guy out for a turn, right? Yeah, you like the doctor said, you have to commit a damage brother and miss. There's some other nonsense people do with like overwhelm tanks, and that can be like fun to meme with. But in terms of playing for like power, it's kind of nonsense, right? Like you're trying to when you build a defense brother, you need hit points, you need resolve, you need fatigue, and defense. Like where are you finding space to level initiative to act instead of your enemies? And then when you do, it's like, okay, I triple stabbed this brigand leader and now he's got a 40% chance to hit me. You could have just in down and basically never die. Or you could stun him and just never die. Like there's just way better ways to or disarm him with a whip. There's way better ways to control one enemy than building around triple stabbing with a shield and like trying to have high initiative with the shield is already kind of nonsense. So I think that build just doesn't really do anything.
I agree. The fights where it is good Stratch Lindworm stuff you can't kill right away. Indom has a very
Mhm.
similar, better effect. In fact, you're like it's far more reliable. Uh, there is exactly one fight in the game where I always want overwhelm. I feel so terrible not having it, and I think it's just super RNG. Is the Barbarian Madman? I always, always,
Mm.
always want overwhelm on that fight. I think the last couple of runs I went to without overwhelm, it's always been a mess. Always been like a horrific experience where my like brother somehow did not die. I don't even know how they didn't
Mm.
like 2 hit points. But when you have overwhelm there, I feel quite safe. Like nothing to worry
Yeah.
about as long as you have overwhelm in that one fight. So I guess one overwhelm is S tier for the Barbarian Man. But
Well, you could
out,
also use Lone Wolf on a fatigue neutral and go in, just to beat
oh
that
yeah,
fight.
because I don't make fatigue. Yes, that would also
Yeah,
be
but
good.
if you want to go with like a tall guy and like throw in that, Orem would be a lot of safety there for sure.
Yep, exactly. That would be my preferable way to fight the Barbarian. Throw a net, going, overwhelm, overwhelm.
Yeah,
Have 9 lives
if
as
you want to keep
backup.
going.
Drink your
Yeah,
Iron Will potion. Like, you're safe.
yeah. So it's a tool to go in without Madman pretty early. If you're up, kind of up and you find him and you're, what level would you fight Madman at with that kind of guy?
That kind of guy. As soon as I have Overwhelm Duelist, and that's really all you need, right? Like, what else? And Dagger Mastery, and Nimble, and 9 lives. So I guess you have to start with
Yeah,
9 lives.
you
Uh,
probably
uh,
need Dodge Relentless as well.
yeah, Dodge Relentless. Yep, I would always take those. That's
So
enough.
level like 8, yeah, you could probably go like this and be fine. Yeah, no, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. Yeah, so some builds that can be Madman earlier. I think that's a good way to approach it. Kind of nice to have against Ijarok as well, even if it just prevents some injuries. Ijarok's not hard, but oftentimes you don't want to get like 17 injuries and slow down, and one perk could be worth it for that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think I'm gonna put student ahead of rotate. What do you think about that?
Oh, well, that's interesting. I would actually move student down to D. Like, I
Okay.
I take it on almost every brother that I consider a complete trash perk. Uh, I do it when
Yeah.
I've already crushed the game.
Yeah.
Oh,
Agreed.
that's why I consider it a trash perk. Um, so maybe we'll talk about student a little bit. I like talking about rotate now. I think it's in an excellent place.
Okay.
In fact, I could even see it ahead of overwhelm. It's hard to say, but rotate
Yeah, I
is
think they're comparable.
I want exactly one, maybe two rotate, maybe. And I've
Hmm.
taken 0 rotate on my latest run. I don't need rotate. It is still, I think, very useful to have one. There are many situations where it's like, oh, if I had a rotate, this would just be a lot smoother. Like I wouldn't have to
Hmm.
stress or do some sort of trick, weird trick. But yeah, rotate. You spend 25 fatigue, and your brother swaps places with another brother that you can use to quote unquote bail out a brother in danger. But the problem is there's so many ways to bail that brother out. And
Right.
like for example, if you have stuns, whips,
Hmm.
um, shield bash, it works great, pretty accurate
Hmm.
too. There are some enemies you can't shield bash or stun. Okay, fine. By the time you're fighting those things, like your lindworms or warlords or whatnot, you almost certainly have smoke bombs. Smoke bombs will bail
Hmm.
out your brother. It's just like it's a perk that doesn't do a whole lot because there
Yeah,
are other
agreed.
options. The one type of
Mhm.
build, or the 2 types of build, I should say, that I like rotate are number one is the utility tank, not the true lone wolf tank. This is the tank I like to keep with the group, and I didn't actually have one of
Mhm.
these, but they would almost always take taunt at level 4, probably
Mhm.
rotate the next level, or maybe shield mastery. Actually, I would go taunt, then shield mastery, then underdog, then nimble or battle forge, then rotate. That's how late rotate is on the list of priorities.
Yeah.
No. Then indom. Like rotate would be all the way at level 10 or whatever. Like so by then I don't even need it. But it's just like, what else do you
Yeah.
do?
At that point, you take bags to carry more smoke pots, for me at least. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a find one or two of.
Okay. So,
But I often just don't take it.
I agree. But there is one more build where I do think rotate is actually good. It's the taunt, not the taunt, the throwing tank. I do love rotate on the throwing tank specifically.
Does it look something like this, or generally?
Something like that. I might do Colossus or something like so. I might actually pick up rotate at level 4 on a brother like this and fill in the other perks later.
Yeah,
I might
you
even
definitely won't.
skip like Fearsome or something. I haven't thought about it that carefully. I have made those before, so I have to load up my old saves and I have to remind myself how I did it. But I do remember rotate. I would consider core in that type of throwing tank build because it's you. The throwing tank is like the ultimate flexible brother. So you could be in the front with your throwing weapons, lure the enemy in, and then rotating a damage dealer. You could rotate to bail out brother in a bad situation, so you could use it two different ways. When you rotate back, you could still throw something that turn. Pretty good. Like you can actually still hit things a little bit. Yeah, that's otherwise though rotate not very good.
Yeah, so the tank basically starts in the front line as effectively a permanent taunt. You can make enemies jump into compromised positions, assuming that the range priority is close enough that they'll advance to you. So it's a little weaker than taunt, but also quote free. And then once it gets jumped on, if you can't immediately kill that enemy, you can just rotate somebody else in, another damage dealer or a utility banner or something. Then you're a thrower and rotate's still there to bail someone out if you can. So I think we're kind of aligned on that. I would also take rotate often utility or tanky type banners. So sometimes I'll build a banner that looks a bit like this. I'll actually take indom, sometimes recover. I often won't have quick hands. I would take rotate often on this kind of guy. So you can just like start in the front line. You can indom like one or two enemies and have the banner. So he's giving you a buff and tanking a little bit. And he can like bail people out. He's usually gonna have fatigue. So a couple of problems with rotate. I guess we could talk about why new players use it way too much. It's very, very conditional. You have to be next to them. The guy you're trying to rotate out can't be about to bleed to death, can't be netted, can't be vined, can't be stunned. And then you have to be adjacent, basically. Your rotate save guy has to be adjacent to your about to die guy. And that position has to be tenable for your rotate guy. If you're taking like rotate and backliners to save frontliners, it's generally you can do it, but it's usually not the best approach. Usually you'd rather have a different way of solving that problem. Like the doctor said, he gave a whole list. Pushing enemies away with a pike is another good one. Or just killing them or routing them with fearsome. So there's a lot of ways to solve those problems. Taking rotation in mass is one of the worst things you can do. I watched a big streamer. He did this on all of his brothers, and he just got absolutely demolished trying to like. You have no perks to help you fight. Like, this was literally perks from like half of his team, like more than half. You're giving up a big like. There's a lot of big mechanical advantages early. You're giving that up for rotate. It's for a guy that often can't do anything else with that perk. Again, like a utility banner. Just some guy with a ton of resolve and no other assets for the team. He's gonna like throw nets and throw potions and rotate around and take a shield out of his pocket and shield wall or whatever. So uh, also I've seen people use it to try to like advance their team. I think we should be able to find better ways to use our AP perks and fatigue. rather than step one tile in front of our two-hander and rotate him in. Like, yeah, it's okay, but a lot of resources.
And just to add on to what you're saying, since another huge problem is rotate competes with really good perks at level 4, like on a tank, you almost certainly
Mhm.
a true tank wants shield mastery, like that early game heater shield with the shield wall is 50 base defense. That is insane. Um, Relentless is like helps you manipulate the battlefield better and score kills, which is a way better way of bailing out your brothers than like
Mhm.
rotate. I personally again like taunt, the one taunt on one brother, add some manipulation there. Like all these other perks, maybe with the exception of Brawny, are just better than
Yeah,
rotate. So
exactly. Almost all the perks above this line are better than
oh yeah,
rotate.
yeah, you can pick perks above the line too. Like all the perks above it,
Yeah.
except Bullseye is like better.
Yeah. Yeah, and then again, smoke pots being the game. If you're gonna recruit an assassin, like the Gatal or the assassin armor, you often get a free smoke pot. And just having like two or three smoke pots in your inventory, you're only gonna use them like one or two a run. That's probably all you need. So a perk for that is like there's just better things to do, guys. So I think that this is fine. I would actually rate student above it, and or do you have more things to say on rotated up there?
I don't have more things to say about rotate, but perhaps we can cover Brawny and reach advantage before student, because I would.
We'll talk about that last time. So Brawny is, I see Brawny as sometimes you're making fatigue neutral out of like a retired soldier and a sword master. They have a ton of resolve and crummy fatigue, and so it makes more sense to take Brawny, make them functional. Sometimes you could take Brawny in like a dodge fatigue neutral if they have super low resolve because you're also getting or fatigue. You're also going to get some initiative out of that. And then if you absolutely need to on a tank, my main Battleforge tank, um, I think we probably agree that the build looks something like this, with like two more perks you can move around. Would you agree with this?
Yes. I sometimes have the bags and belts like you recommended. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but
If you get
yeah,
the exception for bag and belts is if you can get the library shield kind of earlier. I think you can skip bags and belts or very good fame. But yeah, bags and belts is good. I'll give him smoke pot potions. It's a good carrier for it. He always has fatigue to throw it. So yeah, I usually take perks like this. But once we start talking about um patch perks, like you could take fort if you have resolve problems, but that's really overlapping a lot with lone wolf. And you always have when you really need much more resolve than this provides, and your banner's out of position, just monolith, and you can just take a Lionheart for that. So I'm not saying Ford is bad here, but I would prefer Pathfinder. You could take Brawny here as well if you really had fatigue problems.
I
I think
agree.
yeah,
Uh,
go ahead.
the main use case for Brawny is when I'm trying to force a Battle Forge tank, and
Mm-hmm.
because of the limitations I set myself for not re-rolling for brothers, because I just can't find a candidate with enough fatigue, I might have no choice. In fact, in my latest run, that character had enough fatigue. He had enough fatigue, but he didn't have enough resolve. And
Mm-hmm.
my rule was I couldn't like just keep re-rolling characters. So this like semi-acceptable brother without enough resolve, I had to give him fortified mind to make sure he
Mm-hmm.
has enough resolve. But if the problem were reversed, where he didn't have enough fatigue, I would have had to
Mm-hmm.
give him like Brawny, and that's pretty much my
Yeah.
only ever use case for Brawny.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a hammer shield guy, or I remember you can build Damage Brothers as Battleforge. Usually doesn't make sense, but there are times it does. You can have like a low HP like guy like this with, I mean, any weapon you can imagine, right? Um, I guess all you do with a flail that is -3 fatigue to hit. This is a good build, right? Because you're playing like a damage brother. You're not trying to go like underdog and max defense. You have a ton of fatigue and like a good two-hander. You make this work, and like this would be a fine time to take Brawny. But that's a pretty edge case. You're not going to get a light famed armor and a 2-star melee tech farmhand and a minus fatigue. Melee weapon. Like this is like a once every 30 runs to make a build like damage. For his brother.
Yeah, I agree.
Brawny, below rotate, yeah. Would I put reach advantage above or below Brawny? I think there's just less cases for reach advantage. There's a couple times you want Brawny.
I could see that. Like Brawny is purely a patch perk, and it's patching a stat fatigue that is generally pretty trash. So that's why it's really not very good. You sort of
Mm-hmm.
you just have to take it. Usually because you set some sort of restriction for yourself that you're not going to reroll too many characters. Because if you just keep rerolling
Mm-hmm.
character, Brawny would be a complete garbage for you. I can't imagine any build
Yeah.
if you have good stats you would ever want it. But if you're gonna play super in game days aggressively with high tempo, like the way Sins and I do, yeah, sometimes you have to take it for certain builds, especially tanks, really, to
Yeah.
actually work. Or some fatigue neutrals, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. Reach advantage. The problem with reach advantage is it helps you when you don't need it. I guess a couple reasons why. I think people don't understand why this perk is bad. So the first one is I hit the enemy. That's a better than expected result. So like when let's say I step up to a chosen with my fatigue neutral or any brother, let's just say fatigue neutral. I'm expecting 70% chance of success, right? Maybe 70% chance I hit him, 30% I miss. I'm only making that move if a 70% chance is a favorable outcome. Um, and so what is reach advantage doing? It's maybe saving me one or two tools or something. If I needed to rely on that defense to step there, I never would have stepped there. Um, on Damage Brothers, you're normally finishing the kill. So this whole like reach advantage two-handed cleaver is kind of nonsense in my opinion. Like I really don't want to move my cleaver guy next to an enemy unless I'm going to kill him. Like, my cleaver guy shouldn't be there if he's not getting the kill. So when is reach advantage ever better than 9 lives or adrenaline? Like 9 lives is gonna save me if I get hit. Adrenaline's gonna give me guaranteed to tackle for the enemy next turn, a chance to kill them and get out. Uh, AoE attacks are not particularly good anymore because fatigue's not a very good stat. So maybe that like two-headed sword build we showed earlier, but there's just other better perks to take. It's just maybe that lone wolf build is the only one that I'd really think that it was a good perk on, and that's such a niche situation. It's like one origin I would maybe take this perk once is kind of my thought about it. So you really need to think of these games in terms of having backup plans for solving when you get unlucky, not maximizing your best case scenarios. Reach advantage just kind of never does things you want to do to be strong in this game. Does that kind of align with your thinking, Deductor?
Yeah, agree, and I might even consider moving this down to D. I don't think I've taken reach advantage on any
Hmm.
builds except for true fun, but it's not even like the exciting type of fun. Like at least at least bow mastery bullseye can be like a fun meme build. Reach advantage isn't even like a fun meme build in my, because exactly like you said. There's another issue by the way with reach advantage. I'm pretty sure you have to hit right to get your 5%
You do,
defense.
yeah.
That already like just cripples it in my mind. So like either you hit and kill the thing, you don't really need a defense, or you fail and the perk does nothing. It's so bad in that situation.
Yeah.
And uh, any like my style is I do not like to send people off to do their own thing except for the lone.
Yeah.
So I can't
Other
imagine.
than in downtown.
Yeah, other than the inbound pick, exactly. So anyone in the middle, like, yeah, maybe sometimes you get a nice big triple AOE off, but you can only like if you could set up that situation, you could probably set up a better situation with your fatigue neutrals or your shield
Mhm.
guys with a hammer or sword. Like there's some better way of setting that up, and instead of reach advantage you could pick a more useful something like if you want to hit backstabber for example,
Mhm.
not great but like at least that's more consistent than reach advantage. So I almost never pick that. Just and all your two-handers by the way like barely ever um, like their defense is such that the +5 that you're usually getting is
Mhm.
not that big of a difference. I feel like
Mhm.
reach advantage would be first of all, it would be so much better if you don't even have to hit. Then it would be semi acceptable on your fatigue neutrals. Then you're getting at least +5 defense. Pretty good on a fatigue neutral.
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
unconditionally, you're getting 5 defense. But on a damage dealer, I don't know. You want to be killing stuff. You don't want to rely on this questionable way of gaining defense.
Yeah, I think on a build like this, which is a build that this is meant to play in safe places and use split. I think if we were looking at better perks, I would probably rather have Resilient. I'd probably rather have Colossus. I would probably rather have even like Fast Adaptation or XE Backstabber. They're going to help guarantee that kill rather than reach. So I think the use cases for it, we have Overwhelm for and 9 lives when we miss. We really shouldn't, it's just not a great perk. Um,
Yeah, in this
I
particular example, I would
yeah,
100% take resilient every single time in your particular build like this. Like I would give up almost anything resilient.
interesting. I'll have to play with Resilient more. I believe you on that. I'm probably undervaluing it. So I think you can take like a fatigue neutral is gonna look something like this. I mean, you could take reach advantage here just because the other perks competing with it aren't great. Especially if you have like a little extra fatigue, you can maybe do one AoE. What's gonna be better than I guess quick hands if you have fatigue is probably better. Anticipation's probably better. Um, even like fast impatient backstabber could be better. Like I can see if like taking a reach here as your 10th perk. I guess don't have the fatigue for quick hands. Like it's not. This isn't wrong. It's like every perk here, based on the brother, could be kind of bad. Headhunter doesn't do much with like a two-handed hammer or a two-handed axe. Like I don't know. I feel like there's a couple edge cases where it's like an okay perk, but it's either the worst C or one of the better D tier perks. I think.
I think that's reasonable. I do think it would be the worst C tier perk. I
I think D
personally,
redefined is basically no uses.
for me, it would be a D because I have basically no uses for it.
Yeah. I think that's like kind of splitting hairs. It's more where we draw the line between C and D if it's going to be the last tier or like one of the higher here than anything else. Bullseye is the worst perk in the game, right? It doesn't really do anything.
Yes, Bullseye is the worst perk in the game. Period. It's not even like close in my mind. I I've taken it on meme builds, and I specifically
Mhm.
call out like this is if you want to actually play this game well, never ever 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 take this perk. It is so bad, and when I take it, I don't even use it. I'm basically playing down perk.
Yeah.
The thing about Bullseye is it encourages you to do something really bad that you never ever want to do, which is shoot the back line. When I shoot the front line, or
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you also have to have like a bow, which is a bad weapon. So
Yeah.
that already is. But let's say you're using a crossbow, which is at least a decent weapon. Even with that, you don't want to be shooting the back line. You want to be shooting the front line. If you're doing
Hmm.
throwing, uh, I mean, you really want to be throwing at enemies that are 2 hexes away, or 2 hexes counting your center brother, right? Like within 2 hexes. And Bullseye literally has no effect there. And if there's a target who's 2 away or 3 away, you are almost always going to attack the 2 away one. Anyway, in fact, I can't imagine a situation where I would ever attack the one that's 3 away, even if that one's almost dead, or even if it's a high priority target like a hexen or whatever. I still wouldn't do that. I
Hmm.
would just want to kill the thing in front, and then the enemy that's hiding will be exposed, and it will be easy enough to kill them at that point. So Bullseye like
Exactly.
encourages you to do really, really, really bad play style, which is to shoot into
Hmm.
enemy behind cover. That is like,
Yeah.
I get worked up for when people do bad tactical moves. I don't care about builds so much. Like builds are fun, you can do whatever, but I don't know. My personality is when I see people making bad tactical moves, and this is coming from
Hmm.
someone who makes bad moves, like, but when I make a bad tactical
Oh,
move, it
yeah.
is a mistake, and I'm very harsh on myself for that. Maybe a little too much. But is always a bad tactical move. I don't care if your target's a necromancer, a hexen, whatever high priority target you think it is. Like you should be killing the things in front, and then kill the hexen or necromancer once they're exposed.
Yep. Yeah. So some team counts for Hexen do not have guards. You don't need bullseye. Hexen are mostly solvable by the inventory you have more than builds. If you have a bunch of clubs, whips, spears, basically low tier enemies, weapons, and even bows, like you want to use bows against Hexen, bows can't kill your own people, right? So you want to intentionally equip most of your team that doesn't have resilient, bad weapons in Hexen. But you don't really need bullseye to aim for them. I don't, it's just a weird. It makes sense if you're new to the game to think that bullseye is a good approach because the combat tooltip lies. It shows your chance to hit after the scatter roll. You can't get over 47.5% chance to hit the back line. And most enemies are going to take 2 to 3 shots with an aim shot. You're taking like, even with like 110 range attack, you're taking like 7 turns to kill a necromancer. By the time you get anybody with even 80 range attack, that fight should be totally free. I guess we're talking about necromancers then, right? So that's a fight that's challenging at level 4 to 5. At level 6 or 7, those necromancer fights should be close to free, and your brothers cannot hit with bullseye then. You could sit there for 7 turns. The necromancer, when they're back, they also hold the guards out of the fight. So there's going to be 2 to 4 zombies not participating in the fight because the necromancer's alive. The approach of those fights is to kill the dangerous zombies. So 200 fallen heroes, like probably scram sex zombies first. Step on their bodies or take their weapons, and then just kill stuff as fast as you can. Getting a lot of kills against enemy zombies quickly will keep your confidence high and mostly mitigate the Geist streams, and then punch through to the Geist. You don't need all this bullseye. It's not the correct approach. Like the Doctor said, um, it's encouraging you to play the game bad in multiple levels. You're using the worst weapon in the game and making the worst play to try to get value out of it. So I would rank bow the second worst perk. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's interesting. I might
That's a weapon.
not, but I acknowledge it is a bad perk, not because of its effects, which are fine, but because bows are a bad weapon. That's the main
Mhm.
reason. This speaking, of course, from uh, a person like myself who has made many bowmen over the years, but I like to think before I did that, I always put out many disclaimers why this is bad and you shouldn't do it. But like on my latest run, that hunter, man, he hit that 11% and 7% at night.
Mhm.
What am I supposed to do? I had to give him bow mastery as a role play thing.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
but outside of that, it's just now bows don't do enough damage, right? They don't do enough armor damage, especially like
Mhm.
absolutely terrible armor damage. Their accuracy is not great at long ranges. Um, even with high, even if you have a hunter with like 3 stars in range attack, you'll get value out of fast adaptation. Now, also, you don't need mastery to use a bow. It does significantly reduce your
Mhm.
fatigue. It does have that +1 range, which can be nice in some situations, but the like you could just in some fights give your throwers a bow and it'll be good enough. It'll be good enough for that particular fight. Uh
Yeah, exactly.
the fights where I really like bows, and I think it can be a super efficient way of solving them, and you want bows and anticipation, are large goblin camps. And I will sometimes outshoot the goblins, like engaging a long
Mhm.
range duel by range brothers with high range defense and
Mhm.
bows or crossbows and outshoot them. And in that one specific case, bow mastery is pretty good because of the
Yeah.
+1 range you get from it. Sometimes you just need that little extra
Mhm.
range for the aim shot to like gradually snipe away at those goblins. And I can sometimes clear those large, like 25, 30 goblin camps pretty efficiently with one bow expert
Mhm.
and some crossbows. And in that very niche case, it can be pretty valuable because you save a lot of
Yeah.
tools compared to like attacking the goblins head on.
Yeah. No, for sure. There are a lot of ways to solve those. I mean, dogs, but that does cost money. Fire pots also cost money. Anticipation. I sometimes like to run kite shields on my throwers. Doesn't really change the hits to kill that much versus goblins. That can kind of help with that range duel. Or just have if I run a lot of adrenaline. But yeah, that's one way. Using bows, even without bow mastery. But yeah, it's especially if you're running a tighter roster, and that might be why we're both thinking of bows as D tier. I'm thinking here. You're probably thinking more like here. In a tight roster, it's hard to like justify that perk point. We did our co-op run. We actually made a bowman. It was the correct decision. We had a thrower that got an injury, a permanent injury. I think it was the minus movement injury. And so we gave him Bowmaster. So the fights we needed an archer for fighting brigands on the hills, we slotted him in. And that made sense because he was not functional as a thrower because he didn't have good movement. But we could use him as a bow when needed. But I think for me, this is correct. But maybe we can talk about some other perks we think we should slot differently, or did you have more to say on bows?
Hmm. I almost exclusively play with the Origins with 20 brothers as opposed to 12.
Mm-hmm.
If you had 12, I can't imagine ever picking Bow Mastery. It's just you don't have
Yeah.
enough slots for it. You have to take something else because it's a dead perk too often. If you can have more than 12 brothers on 20, it could be okay to have one as a specialist in certain fights. But those other fights you could
Yeah.
solve a different way. Like it never, you're not going to take this and suddenly unlock something uh, that you couldn't otherwise do with like even the large goblin camps. There are many other ways to approach this. I just
Mm-hmm.
personally so extremely slow, like in real world time, to engaging that artillery duel, as I like to call it, with the goblins. But it can be pretty satisfying, like for me as a player to outshoot the goblins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Which perk would you think is the second worst if it's not bow?
Probably student. In fact, I might rank that like equivalent to bullseye, which is ironic
Hmm.
because I take student on almost every brother. So how could I possibly say that it is such a
Mhm.
bad perk? Yet it should be an S if it's by the percentage of brothers who have this. The answer is extremely simple. Student does nothing. It is like it's a level 1 perk. You pick it, you gain some more experience, but it doesn't give you any power boost, which is
Mhm.
so bad. You need a power boost like in the early game, those levels, 1 through 4. You just need all the stats you can get your hands on because
Mhm.
You're not outscaling the game at that point. Every little bit of help you can get, especially if your brothers have no stats. In fact, it doesn't even matter if your brothers are good. Even if they have like, I don't know, 62 melee attack and 2 stars. Not uncommon for like studying brothers to have like stats like that. That's gonna be an amazing level 11 brother. But compared to your 52 attack farmhand, the 62 attack with 2 stars, not all that different. It's only like slightly better. So in the early game, you just have to take perks that do stuff, and student does nothing. It
Yeah.
does the plus 20% experience. So theoretically, I guess you could maybe level up a little faster, and that way get more stats. That's a real questionable way. You're not going to outscale the game that way. You're going to outscale it by picking fast adaptation, dodge, Colossus, 9 lives, perks that like do something. I often take student by the time I feel like my brother doesn't need any other active perks. Like I'm strong enough
Hmm.
that might as well get them to level 11 quicker. So that can often mean level 5, 6, not 7 because that's nimble, 5, 6, 8,
Mhm.
or 10. I've taken student on all sorts of level 10 brothers
Yeah.
because I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Might as well take student. In my latest run, like I took so many students on like those late game brothers because I
Mhm.
already did what I needed to with them. So
Yeah.
it's a noob trap too. That's the other thing. Like people pick this. Oh, it's like,
Oh yeah,
oh, you other
absolutely.
RPGs, right? Gaining experience faster. You want to get the maximum value, right? So you start at level 1. Makes sense. That's what you might think, and that's how a lot of other RPGs work. But if you look at the Battle Brothers levels, the first couple levels are only a small amount of experience. Most of the actual like like it's like the last levels that require the most experience. So, like for example, to get to level 4, you just need 1,000 experience. But going from level 10 to 11 is like 3,000 experience. So
Mhm.
you're getting the tiny little bit of extra value in the beginning is not worth being down perk.
Agreed. So I think we agree on that. I'm gonna go ahead and give the counterpoint. I don't think this disagrees with anything you said. Oftentimes in BB, you're getting that second wave of brothers in. So like you're established, you have your total trash brothers. You're gonna go hire like at least for me, 2 to 5 late brothers for the late game. Build like fatigue neutral Battleforge tank. They basically do nothing early game, right? They need stats, they need gear. They're not going to be fighting in hard fights. So I will take stuff like Colossus 9, Gifted, Path, and then Student, and they're just kind of dead weight in the back row hitting with a bill hook. And there isn't really a perk that's going to change that. So I think at this point, like let's say we're training up, or like we're training up a Battleforge tank, right? And we have these perks. Like what do we take next? We hire that like 2 star defense farm average farmhand. Maybe I take Pathfinder, Colossus Gifted, and then like he doesn't have the stats to frontline. I need him to level fast. He's getting slow experience because he's not getting kills. So I think that there's some use cases there. Even if like most of my team's level 2, one of my guys dies and I need to hire like an early game brother, I might just punt student for the first couple levels. That because like the enemy attacks based on how vulnerable that brother is. So I can't give this guy 9 lives and frontline him. This is like a level 2 nomad I just hired. The rest of my team's level 5. I screwed up and fought snakes. I fought 10 snakes day 21 and lost the guy. Lost like a level 5 brother. I don't want to put this level 2 nomad in the front. Even with a shield, he's going to get smoked. I want to get like 2 or 3 perks and some stats on him. So it takes student. And then like he's probably not going to frontline to his like level 6 or 7ish anyways. It's not really slowing him down from getting nimble. I think that there's some like obviously taking it first on everybody, or even first on like brothers you're gonna train is often a mistake. But I think there are enough times when it's correct to take it in the run. Like for me, it's probably like I would place it here personally. Um, I don't think it's impossible to find a use for. It's just if a brother can contribute, you want to take a perk that contributes. If there's no perk that can contribute on that brother, or he has no way of contributing even with a perk, then I think student's correct. What are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. Well, if we're thinking about if this perk, if you were to ban student in your game, would that make it harder?
Yeah, it would probably add 5 days for getting my second wave trained up. Three to
It
five
would.
days for my second
I agree. It would be super tedious, but would it really make
wave.
it harder?
Well, if you were playing on, if you were, let's say, we each do deserters, we each try to clear, this is hypothetical, I have a response to this. Each wants to clear monolith 10 times with desert without ever losing. So 10 wins in a row with deserters in the monolith. How much would student add, not never taking student, add to that total clear time? Across 10 runs, probably like 15 or 20 days.
Yeah, I agree. But would it make the game harder? It would make it more tedious. But
I guess my harder part of my thought is getting things done by a certain day count, right? Because
oh, okay, I
it's kind of how we
see.
measure things. So yeah, that was my. I guess it's the piece of thought I didn't share. Because like you can play the game without co-op, without gifted too. It's not. It's gonna make it harder. It's gonna make getting from the mid game to the very late game take more days, which is a type of difficulty.
Yes, that's true. I acknowledge that. And on that second wave of brothers, you're right. I do take student on pretty much all of them. Maybe not at level 1 or 2 rather, but pretty quickly, so they can level up quicker. And I acknowledge it does
Yeah.
shave a pretty substantial number of days off of leveling the brothers from doing that. But I feel like once you have those that second wave, you've also sort of won the game. And so we're talking about student being good in such a specific uh, challenge mode where we're trying to clear certain content by certain day. That is literally
Mhm.
all this perk is useful for. And that just seems
Yeah.
like almost like a speed running perk. That doesn't seem very good to me. From like if
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's not wrong. We're not really disagreeing. We're just kind of asking about what criteria we're using to rate perks. So I guess that's kind of where the student is between a low C and a low D based on how you're rating them, right?
yeah, I mean by the criteria you laid out in your original Reddit post about how often this perk is picked, it would be S because I pick it on almost every single brother at some point in the run.
Mhm.
But by the criteria of power, this is a D. It is the same, slightly better than Bullseye because it does something, but it doesn't contribute power, and it makes it's like that noob trap that even like certainly newer players, but even I think intermediate players can fall into the trap
Mhm.
of taking too much student too early, and your game really suffers from it. And if they were to never like if student didn't even exist, the button you can't click on it, they would just have an easier
Mhm.
time with Battle Brothers. It would just be an easier game for them.
Yeah, agreed. I'm going to give a nod to one person I consider an expert player that loves students, and his name is Sergey. I think he speaks English and Russian, maybe other languages too. He doesn't talk on his streams. He takes student level 2 on almost everybody, and he's kind of the only one. His playstyle's a bit different than yours or mine. He's much slower the first 30 to 40 days. He focuses instead of snowballing and then coming back later to hire good brothers. He kind of just hangs out in your town and takes student and like protects his good brothers and lets his bad brothers die, and then tries to recruit better ones. But he's playing more to clear every legendary, at least in the runs that I watched. So he is instead of if I were going to go clear every legendary, I would snowball with 12 trash brothers, go back, hire like 3 or 4 premium brothers, level them, and then clear the legendaries. He just does the process a bit differently. He spends more time again, just like chain re-rolling farmers, brawlers, whatever. maybe some nomads. And again, I've only seen like one of his runs, so this is not maybe all of his plays not like this. Maybe I think I've seen two of his runs. Just a little different approach to exactly what he wants to do with it. In that context, I think given that there's one expert player that loves it and we're kind of on the fence about it, I think think that makes me want to just not this isn't a Sins rating. This is me trying to rate uh, what all expert players are doing. So yeah, for me, I'd probably put it in G, but kind of trying to nod to some other people. I think a low C probably is maybe where it belongs.
I think that's a valid perspective. I may not have ever watched Sergey's streams, but I remember many years ago he left insightful comments on my Battle Brothers videos, pointing out mistakes or different things I could be doing, and he was generally right about his comments. So I could certainly think that if he's taking student a lot in his particular way of clearing the game and doing all the legendary locations, it might actually be quicker to do it that way. Like I could definitely believe that, like in terms of in-game days, like uh that's a valid approach. But again, we're talking about these niche like speed running
Hmm.
scenarios where
Yeah.
uh even let's say student didn't exist for him, it would just take him slightly longer in-game days to achieve the same thing. Like if student didn't exist for anyone, it would like totally like it's just if it didn't exist for anyone, it would make the game easier for most people and make it slightly tedious
Yeah.
for a couple of experts. And since it exists, we're just talking about like, is there some way to use this to speed run a little quicker? So that
Yeah.
just speaks to me as being so niche.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it determines on like you could say the same thing about any perk, right? Like let's say that I had to do a no 9 lives run. You just play slower, more carefully, right? You take easier fights. So I think kind of in my ranking, like playing with the A count ish is kind of part of the criteria. Because you could skip any perk by just spending more time, right? Like I like Headhunter and Flail because you can play with Trash Brothers. But like if you just spend more time hiring, you wouldn't need those perks. You would just use maces and axes and hammers instead and not care about flails. So I think that counter argument you could apply to most perks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. I would agree on that. I mean, in fact, the game, I know someone has played it with no perks whatsoever. The turtle? It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think he beat the Crisis with no perks.
I don't know how you could be a legendary or some legendaries with no perks. Like,
He didn't. Yeah, he didn't. I don't know where that idea came from, but he did. I think
oh,
somebody, I think, yeah, like a
I think
telephone game, right?
it is possible. You just have to have everybody have the max veteran rank, so you have like plus
Mm-hmm.
30 to all the stats that matter, and then you could probably do it. But it's so
You can call
anyway.
it. Oh no, you. I know you can do it because somebody challenged me to beat Monolith with all level 1 brothers. BB edited. And so I did all level 1 cultists with the max cultist buff.
Oh, I
All with
was
max level
like,
10.
okay, I could see that. I was like, how would that be possible?
Yeah.
But the cultist buff, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you
well,
could do it. Yeah.
you might have convinced me about student. I worry that like for the folks who would benefit from watching this video and learning about the relative strength of perks, at least when it comes to how Sins and I think, I just want to make it clear to those viewers that student is is an especially niche way of reducing the number of in-game days you play. Like you have to be very on top of the rest of your game to benefit from student.
Agreed. So I guess we can talk about crippling strikes. I think it's It's hot garbage. I think that's where it belongs. I guess here's why. It's maybe a more complex answer than it sounds like at first. So a lot of injuries do nothing to the AI. A lot of enemies have basically infinite fatigue. So the minus fatigue injuries do nothing. A lot of times the initiative type injuries, it won't really change their turn order. Your initiative brothers are still gonna be faster than them, and they're still gonna be faster than your slow guys. Crippling strikes doesn't even guarantee high tier injuries. Gives you a chance to roll either low or high tier injuries. A lot of the minus defense injuries don't matter because the enemy has very low defense, often 0 to 15. So it might be like -1 or -2 defense. And even the ones that are like minus attack, you're often trying to focus an enemy and kill them right away. So the amount of things that has to happen for crippling strikes to ever do anything is just astronomical. And then if you're trying to use it as a damage perk, it's just worse than every other damage perk in the game. I think it can technically be like 8% damage after you've taken Axie against living things. But that's after you can already fit Axie in. And Headhunter is generally more DPS than Crippling Strike. So I just really struggle to think of any build that wants like all three of these damage perks and still can function. It's obviously worse than like Headhunter, Fearsome, Fascination, Backstabber, Gifted. Not to mention the defensive perks. What are your thoughts on crippling strikes? Am I missing something with it?
No, I think you cover the most important points, which is it's just the injuries. A lot of them literally do nothing. All the fatigue ones are
Mhm.
completely irrelevant to the AI. Mostly irrelevant. There are some super niche scenarios where I
Mhm.
maybe reduce their attacks from 2 to 1. I don't want some absurd nonsense like that. You can't pick the type of injury you land. Like even if you have crippling strikes and a heavy weapon, you might still land a low tier injury rather than really valuable ones. Like can't. It's the only value is like trying to combo it with executioner, but you can probably, or not probably, you can definitely benefit from executioner without crippling strikes. Like chances are you're using enough heavy weapons of some sort that you're going to land some sort of injury on the enemy, and then executioner will be useful. So it just doesn't do enough. Like the times when you go from no injuries to a minor injury, well, if you don't have executioner, it probably doesn't even do much. And going from a minor injury to a heavy injury, yes, that could be good. But again, the RNG and the random nature of how crippling strikes works is just so completely unreliable that it's not even, I guess it could be a fun unreliable, mostly to cripple unholds like the Shamshir duelist with the sword mastery, crippling
Mhm.
strike. It's fun to watch an unhold with 5 injuries, but come on, you're inflicting 5 injuries on these unholds, like could have killed him.
Poor unholds.
Yeah, poor thing. I always feel bad. Like there's, I refuse to kill donkeys. Like that's just morally wrong. And I
Oh,
always
really?
feel, yeah, it's terrible. I cannot.
Oh, that's why you don't like. Oh, I forgot to bring this up on our student conversation. If I'm raiding, I will give one guy student and kill every single donkey with him.
Oh my god! I have sworn to my viewers on my YouTube channel I will never ever hurt a donkey in Battle Brother. Period. Like never. You'll never see me hurt a poor donkey, poor defenseless thing.
You're a better man than me. I will slaughter them mercilessly.
But yeah, you should probably slaughter them for the experience and the strange meat. You know, that's
Yeah.
for everyone else. And I always feel bad about killing unhosts. I'll of course kill them and drop really good stuff, but I feel bad because unhosts are kind of like bears. Like they're kind of
So yeah.
harmless, and like they're just trying to eat. Like when they're eating livestock, the people they're just hungry. It's just you know their nature. They're not like malicious. Just want to live and eat. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, yeah, unholds are. I mean, I want the bones for bone plating, so, and I want the beast charges if I need them for scout, or the hides for kraken. But yeah, it's I'm a big tree hugger myself, and not a big fan of killing the unholds. But I'm when I play Battle Brothers, I kind of role play as mercenary, right? Like in every sense of the word. So I kind of get in that zone of like, this profit, we're taking it. I'll slaughter the villagers. I'll murder the donkeys. It's fine.
Oh, I understand. I have no problem with everybody else doing that. Like, it's understandable
Yeah,
and it's often the right thing to do. I just personally don't like to do that. Like, if there is an alignment in Battle Brothers, I would almost certainly be like lawful good. I
yeah.
hate attacking caravans. I hate attacking guards. I do it. I do it. And it's because of profit. Like in the latest run, I attacked the southern city, but first I put up a poll to ask what would everyone else do. 92% of people voted to attack the southern city state guard. It's like, okay,
My
I'll do
all
it.
right. My favorite thing to do is to take a caravan and then after it gets there, kill it. After
Very
they take it, kill it.
profitable.
Yeah, it makes me giggle. Like, yeah. So I guess back to crippling strikes. Yeah, that's probably the correct place for it. It doesn't even cause injuries very often. Injuries do nothing. Once you hit a guy once, you usually want to kill him. It's just like, there's so many reasons why it's that bad. Where would you put Footwork Deductor?
I like the high D or the
Okay.
lowest C, but I think high D is correct. I could easily do a run with no footwork and there would be absolutely no difference.
Oh,
And why
yeah.
is footwork so bad? Number one reason is the existence of the smoke bomb. You have a better
Hmm.
AoE footwork. Sure, it costs
Yeah.
a little money. Sure, you probably have to go to the Southern City State and buy a couple, but they're pretty easy to get, and
Hmm.
it's just a better footwork. It doesn't cost
Yeah.
fatigue for the people moving out of the zone of control. So yeah, what else to say about footwork? It's just like what sort of brother really benefits from it. It's the ones who can't survive melee engagement. Now, we all make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes on my streams or in, my YouTube videos where, like, a brother who should not have zoned an enemy, like, zoned them and need to bail them out. Well, smoke bomb will solve the problem. Otherwise, I did used to take footwork more, especially on the
Hmm.
range characters as a way to get them out of zone of control. But with smoke bombs, you really don't need that. If there were no smoke bombs, and I'm not feeling like I'm like I'm not feeling like trying super hard and focusing on every single battle like mentally, then yeah, I might just be less optimal and take footwork on like maybe a thrower or even my bannerman or something like that because I can't afford to actually lose like the bannerman. And I really don't
Hmm.
want to lose a thrower. And if there were no smoke bombs, I'll just take it because I know I'm going to make a mistake and definitely don't want to be like re-upping, rebuilding a bannerman in the game.
Yeah.
But it's just a smoke bomb is the main reason why it's just not good anymore. Um, there is
Yeah.
one or possibly two exceptions where I do think footwork. Number one, specifically for the anonymous origin, if
Okay.
you take footwork with that goblin potion and it costs half the fatigue, and you take Pathfinder, and even better if your brother has athletic, you can make the most ridiculous bait build. This character can just literally
Hmm.
run around the entire map, never ever actually get fatigued out, no matter what, and make the AI go completely. The AI is not capable of handling it, so the AI will
Hmm.
make terrible mistakes. I did this on my Anamus run with Rhubarb, and I just could not stop cackling like a madman when he was doing the run around the map and bait the AI shenanigans. It was so
Hmm.
absurdly hilarious that if you do the Anamus origin, you have to like make one of the footwork
Oh, yeah.
Goblin Potion brothers. If I mean, it is also objectively absurdly strong, but it is also hilarious. It's like both.
Yeah. It is.
Um, In a regular run, if you have a Vladic Pathfinder brother, you should also consider the option of footwork because you can almost do that. You can do it for long enough in a battle that you could
Mhm,
still do that kiting strategy, and it can be very powerful. The last
mhm,
more niche scenario is sometimes I will take it on a spearman. Um, I
mhm.
know you don't use spears as much, but I like it on a spear brother. Uh, they will inevitably get zoned, and my spearmen almost never have good defense because those brothers are doing something else. Like I can't afford to have defense on my spearmen. So in that situation, even if you just use it once per battle, like that footwork on a spearman does have value. Buying yourself like just that one extra turn of control. I think it
Mhm.
is quite good for that one specific like non-anonymous, non-athletic Pathfinder use case. Um,
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just the smoke bomb makes it bad.
Yeah, so I think a couple other little uses. You can cheese lindworms with it, because you can just keep working away from them. And you can make them chase one guy around in circles while you kill them with ranged. You can kite lindworms off the pack. Outside of like runner strategies though, which I think are a little exploiting and I try to not use. There's a couple clever things to do with it. I saw a build like this. I was watching a Chinese language streamer on Billy, whatever it is. He's relentless guys with footwork. So if he missed, so he would, double turn, and then he just footwork back out. I thought that was kind of cool. Is it necessary? So he's taking footwork more like a 9 lives. So basically, he can put his relentless and brothers in slightly more dangerous positions. Get attack with a two-hander to save fatigue. The next turn attack again, and then yoink back out with footwork. I thought that was kind of cool. I think it's maybe not as good as like the Catal or Zweehänder type style, but I think it's valid. And then I think I should talk about the bad ways to use footwork. It's kind of a trap perk. I've seen some newer players like to take it on backliners because it's so easy to just make hybrids. Or to play around one backliner that doesn't have any melee attack. Hybrids, the opportunity cost of making it a pure hybrid is so low. Like in the backline, the only stat you really need is range attack. Like, what are you doing with your other roles? It's higher value than the tactical flexibility to fight in melee. Probably nothing good. Um, so there's maybe a case where you make an initiative gunner that's like a debuffer. If you like a hunter with 47 melee attack and no stars, maybe that brother you'd want to take footwork on. But you could also just give him a sword or a spear, and he can he's probably taking overwhelm. Like there's other things you can do, or play him in the middle and not expose him to danger. Basically, every hard fight in the game is going to expose all of your team to melee. So building backliners that can take a limited melee attack, and I mean like 65 melee attack and like 15 melee defense is like fine. You want like 75 melee attack, um, but you don't need it. Opportunity cost for getting that is so low. You don't need melee stars to make hybrids, guys. You just need this fast adaptation perk and a spear or sword, and you're a hybrid. Because you're attacking stuff that's almost dead already. You have 9 lives, maybe bone plating, nimble, 70 HP. You're gonna be fine versus one chosen for 3 or 4 turns. That's enough to kill them with just a little bit of attack. So I think that's not a very good case. Think of neck response will kill you. They don't care about footwork. When wolf riders flank you, they don't care about footwork. Um, and then at the end of the fight, you might not have 20 fatigue to footwork away from that orc berserker that reaches your back line. Versus you see him coming, you can just throw in that, right? There's just way better deals to deal with your back line getting breached in footwork. But there are a couple use cases. Anything else to add for footwork deductor?
I think that's an excellent summary. Like taking on the backline has all of those problems that you mentioned, where in most situations there is some other solution to your backline getting zoned, whether it's a stun, a whip, taunt.
Yeah.
or in the worst possible case scenario, a smoke bomb. Like there's almost
Yeah.
always some other solution that is not worth giving up a perk on your hybrids. And your hybrids, the backliners, they really need that damage perk. Like those brothers need to be killing stuff. Like just having 9 lives will be enough of a security blink. Like if you get zoned by an orc warlord on the backline, okay, you have 9 lives, nothing to worry about. You probably have bone plating by that stage anyway. So really, you could
Yeah.
probably take up to 3 hits, and the orc warlord will like miss some of those hits. And if you're
Mhm.
going to be able to kill that orc warlord in like, if you can't, you shouldn't have been in that fight in the first place,
Yeah.
and certainly Footwork will not save you if you can't kill that orc warlord in returns. So yeah, that's I agree with everything you said about Footwork.
Looking over this list, is there anything that jumps out at you as being in the wrong place?
Let's see. Looking over some of this again is just play style stuff. Like I
Yeah.
personally rank
Me one
underdog.
quick second. If you want to look over it for a couple quick seconds, let me go refill my drink, and we can go over that.
J34 says S shouldn't be in playstyle. Do you agree on that? S should be objectively OP or must take. I I think experts would all agree those 6 perks there are objectively OP, and you like if you're not taking those perks, you're challenging yourself in some way. So is that objective? I don't know. Like I feel like Battle Brothers is a very subjective game. That's part of the challenge. Like everybody has a slightly different playstyle. It would be boring if everybody played the exact same way. I feel like, and it's good to have variety and options. But this brings up you bring up a good point, because maybe there is actually an objective way to measure Battle Brothers and perks, because like the question like in a way, J33 your J34 I'm sorry, J your question is like, has Battle Brothers been solved? And for the longest time, I would be like, no, maybe builds have been solved, but the actual playing of Battle Brothers probably has not been solved. However, Slurgy, he did that run with the Peasant Militia where he never entered a town, right, and beat all the legendary locations. I have not watched too much of it, but if he is able to accomplish that, that has to be like the hardest thing you can do in Battle Brothers. Like whatever he did in that run has to be like solving the game. Yes, you could do Origins with fewer starting brothers or whatever, but it doesn't change like the actual path to solution. If you can do it with the Peasant Militia 12 brothers, like whatever other solutions, like whatever other origins there are, the solution must be similar to that. So if uh, Slurgy did comment on my YouTube a couple of things. I should read his comments, by the way, uh, about his thoughts on the tier list. Let's see.
Yeah, I think J34 for for playstyle, I agree that like that should be this list is trying to incorporate the playstyles of different people. Like for me, obviously, Dagger is probably S tier. I think Relentless and Duelist for me are probably S tier as well. But like for Slurgy, Spears are S tier. Me personally, Brow would be higher B tier. Well, Mace is there for control, not for death blow. Mace solves a lot of the game's problems. Um, it's not for Mace Catal. Like they're not necessarily a pair. Mace can do a lot of things Catal can't do. But yeah, if you're running daggers, you want to run maces. But just because you're running maces doesn't mean you want daggers. It just means you want one stun bot, and one stun bot's really powerful. Berserk's probably lower for me and higher for other players. Like this is trying to be generic. Do you get access to those comments, Deductor?
Yes, I have them pulled up. So Slurgy thinks the two S plus tier are Nimble and 9 lives. How
Yeah.
9 lives has changed, right? But yeah, he thinks they dramatically and permanently transform your squad on the level when they are available. Nimble, of course, is self-explanatory. I could ask him like why he thinks 9 lives is transformative. I would imagine it is because of the information it gives,
Yeah.
how you can change your play uh, based on that information, but maybe there's another reason that he has. So he also thinks, yep, fast adaptation, like especially early on. He really likes it on javelins. Fearsome, of
Mm-hmm.
course, trivializes most huge size fights. Yep, exactly. That's why classes, obviously. Mace mastery is for sure the most generically useful weapon mastery. Yep, across a variety of company strategies. Mace is just no matter what way you want to use the mace, stun bot, mace duelist, two-handed mace, uh, they're all
Mm-hmm.
good. Like all of those
Yeah.
are excellent. And one mastery, you can just change weapon types out. Like I do that. Like sometimes one-handed mace, sometimes two-handed mace, depending on the fight. It's great. Uh, but he also really likes Pathfinder. He thinks Pathfinder should be S tier. Interesting. I
Hmm.
could see that.
And I've done no almost no Pathfinder monolith runs at like day 75 or 80. Just because I feel like for me the reason why Pathfinder's an A tier not S tier is that you need to fight in certain parts of the map, and you often want to take powerful perks first. So if let's say like my team's level 9, I've already cleared the desert and I've already cleared the tundra, I'm not gonna take Pathfinder. Unless I want to do Goblin City and Library, and then I am. So I guess it depends on what you're doing. That was just a monolith run. If I wanted to do Goblin City and or Library, then I would have had to take Pathfinder.
Yeah, even on flat terrain, though, Pathfinder does something. It reduces fatigue
Yeah.
costs. You can probably get one extra or one or two extra weapon swings or throws out of it, which by itself, like that's the lowest possible value. One or two extra swings out of it, and the upper limit is like can completely change the way you play a map and make it so much easier. So I could see an argument for that being S tier. And then he likes backstabber more. He thinks it should
Mhm.
be B, and
Hmm.
yeah, I could
Okay.
see it. He thinks it's an example use cases as a late game focused alternative to fast adaptation on a brother that has middling melee skill and low fatigue. One you like to turn into a fatigue neutral or other foundational unit. Yeah, I could see that, right? You need to be taking contact. So on a fatigue neutral, maybe like you don't need brawny or something, and or you don't need maybe he's skipping gifted for it. I don't know, but I can't imagine why you skip gifted for it. You must be skipping something else. Maybe it's a fatigue neutral who has naturally high hit points or something. I don't know, but there could be some cases where
Yeah,
maybe he thinks is better.
I would just build the flail. Like if you have to patch the melee attack, you go flail headhunter and ignore shields. So um, there can be a playstyle thing. Could be a tempo thing. I feel like if you have adaptation, you probably don't. Most units want it. And then the positioning, because both of us rely on relentless so much in initiative, that actually makes backstabber a lot worse than those defensive units. So if you're not using a lot of positioning in backstabber, I don't know. I still feel like if you have two defense units next to each other, you made a positioning error. Um, so I think Matt, I don't think it's wrong to disagree with Sergi. I think he's one of the better players. So do you think we should move Pathfinder or Backstabber based on his thoughts and incorporate that into this? And
Um,
or where
he
would we put them?
he also thinks footwork is terrible, like and he actually likes bow mastery as a C, but specifically if you get an early war bow from an enemy mercenary or a named war bow early.
That's,
Um,
that's niche enough. that I'm going to keep it
Yeah,
to. I don't think it matters if it works here or here. The question is where we draw the line between C and D.
yeah,
I mean, that's the only difference, right?
yeah. I take footwork on spearman, but it's such a niche thing too. I could certainly, even if I don't take footwork on a spearman, it'll probably be so I could see like the D there. Pathfinder is a very interesting one. Oh no,
Yeah, it's hard
maybe it
to. I
should be
mean,
higher.
yeah, if I had to do a run without Pathfinder, how much harder would the game be? I guess it depends on what you want to accomplish in the run. Probably should be if you're just doing monolith, it's probably A tier. If you're trying to do the whole all the content, it's definitely S tier. So I think I'm
Mm,
fine with putting it up here. Maybe
there
even
are
higher than Mace Mastery, like here.
no Mace Mastery. Like I can't imagine early game without the Mace Mastery, but I can imagine early game without Pathfinder. It does make
Yeah,
a lot of fights a lot easier. Pathfinder it does. Um,
yeah, that's true. Uphill brigands, fighting in the desert.
any
Yeah,
sort
no,
of bad
I
terrain,
definitely.
forest.
Yeah, it should probably be S tier. There are runs where you can skip it, but it's strong. It changes your tactical options so much.
True, true. We probably underrated Pathfinder before.
Is Relentless
Um,
better than Gifted?
oh no, maybe. Relentless stuff something special. I always like the special thing more than just pure
Yeah, I think it
stats.
is.
That's my personal thoughts.
I could put Backstabber above Cleaver. I could bump it up like one.
Sure. I feel like my use of backstabber is very like questionable. He likes it on the fatigue neutral types. I
Yeah,
I'm taking it on like fast adaptation, blob, backstabber, trash bros, and in that situation, backstabber doesn't seem as good. Really should be a different.
yeah. I feel like Backstabber and Fatigue neutrals is worth like two or three, two or three melee attack if they're being played correctly, which might be with a perk. But again, I really like those flail neutrals. I think buying the early flails is a lot of tempo, so maybe it's a playstyle difference, but yeah, it's interested to hear how valuable he thinks Backstabber is in the case of when he's taking it.
He did mention the great sword or flail. He says like sometimes even those aren't accurate enough. So maybe we
Okay.
just have different like thresholds for what's accurate enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with like a 77 melee attack fatigue neutral with flail because I can usually fit in like adrenaline, and so like that adrenaline's going to give them those attacks come earlier. They end up being about the same impact as like a normal fatigue neutral. They get that extra trick to help the team.
Oh, okay.
But he
So
can't really, yeah, he can't do that with spears though. You don't really want that adrenaline like rush to first contact style.
yeah, maybe that's he's like picking backstabber instead of adrenaline on fatigue neutral. Like not worth the one early attack. I don't know. I can't comment too much about those niche fatigue neutral scenarios. Like, thinking my latest run, I did have a sword master who is like the perfect fatigue neutral candidate, but even then, I didn't really want to make him a fatigue neutral. I just sword master. He should
Yeah,
be duelist with some sort of sword for a role play reason. Plus, also that character is named after me. So my options are being an old man with a giant flail, in heavy armor, and just swing once around. Which honestly, I feel like that a lot of days. That is very thematically fitting, but it would be so much cooler with his duelist hat, which he can't wear as a fatigue neutral. Like the duelist hat, he came with that special hat with the feathers and like some sort of nimble armor, and just swing away with one-handed weapon. It just looks so much cooler, even though I know it's objectively worse than the neutral.
you know what? It just clicked for me why uh, Backstabber is a B tier for Slurgy because he makes his best early hires into Spearmen. I mean, he's making worse brothers than the Damage Brothers. So I make my best early hires in the Damage Brothers. He's using those like early, Lion or like the melee attack Beastmaster or like the melee attack Desert or whatever. Those are the guys he's making into Spearmen. He has to make everybody else work as Damage Brothers. So that makes a lot more sense for Backstabber then, right? Given the way he allocates his skills into different roles among the team is just unique.
Oh, that's I didn't know he would make his best brothers into spearmen. I always make not
Mhm.
my best brothers, but like someone with really good attack, but pretty much nothing else going for them. That's who I make a
Mhm.
spearman. Sometimes I struggle to even like find a good candidate because like the other brothers, in my mind, are too good, and I was like, well,
Yeah.
I need a spearman, but I really want to use someone like worse. Maybe I should turn that around. I should consider making someone like super strong into a spearman. See how that works out.
Yeah. So that might be like for me, perks are in different places because of our play styles. So like that just clicks. So I just wanted to kind of walk through why that makes sense for the way he plays. Any other things that you or Sergio would move around?
I'm just looking through again. Again, some of these like perks like recover, it really feels like if there were someday in the future where you make like I don't know what it would be called, like a perk tier list where it's for each perk it's based on the number of brothers in your company who have perk. It would be so you would have to do nimble, and then you would say like how many brothers would have nimble. Same
Mhm.
thing for like rally. Like one is S tier, two
Mhm.
is F. So recover is in that sort of scenario. Like it pairs with indom. There's so some of these perks are just real hard to put into a ranking
Yeah.
without considering the team or like the other perks. Like indom, I pretty much always want recover. I know you might do it a little differently.
Mhm.
Like there's the obvious value for recover, and there's not much value in other
Sure.
places. Same thing
Sometimes
with
puncture guys.
oh yeah, puncture guys, that's true. But I consider that niche. Like by the time I can
Yeah.
be puncturing
Yeah.
over the one, or the enemy would have been controlling some other way that I can puncture
Mhm.
one around perfectly safe doing.
Absolutely.
The other example in my mind that is the resilient and relentless slash initiative builds. Like I consider them pair
Mhm.
together super well, and
Yeah.
I value resilient very highly because of that specific need to protect myself against losing initiative. But
Mhm.
outside of that context, like resilient, good. So there are a lot of perks like
Yeah.
it's just hard to talk about without some sort of tier list based on like other perks almost, which would get too
And
complicated.
that's why it's like a 6, 7 hour discussion. It's like, and it's still never gonna be right. We could have this conversation again in a week, and we would have a different list. It's not. It's meant to be like a informative tool rather than like this is like the set in stone perfect ranking.
I agree. I agree. All right. Well, any concluding thoughts?
I don't think so. I like this list. I think it does a good job of giving an overview of the different players and their different styles and kind of trying to average them as well as for kind of intermediate and advanced players, giving some I want some hints at more advanced ways to approach the game, more expert ways to approach the game. So I guess I'll wrap up the sim we started that. This is probably going to look weird to you, unless you've got a lot of experience in having successful runs in the game. That's because kind of the more time you put in the game and the more successful you are, you realize some perks are kind of baity, like swordlances are kind of baity, student, et cetera, et cetera. And then you kind of figure out the perks that work consistently, help you scale quickly, and help you get into hard fights with weaker brothers. and also beat RNG. And this I think does a good list of kind of giving intermediate and advanced players a couple things to chew on during the next playthroughs. Any more? You want to finish us up off with some final thoughts, Deductor?
Yeah, I like what you said about how this could change if we looked at this in a week. I would like to think the broad outlines of this list is still going to be correct, but certain perks might go slightly up or down. And um,
Hmm.
I do feel like it is a bit of, I think what we would like to think is a combination of the thoughts of other expert players, but everything varies a little bit by play style.
Yeah.
So, like again, I personally think underdog is not in I more years and personally love resilient. But those are very mm, those are like just player specific styles, and
Hmm.
feel like I could pilot one of your companies just fine, and you could probably pilot one of my companies. In fact, we know this from our co-op series. So, but we
Hmm.
would have to adjust our playstyle a little bit based on like what perks are, like what sort of builds are around.
Hmm.
That could be a fun thing to do, to like
Yeah.
give each other a late game company and see how we pilot those.
Interesting. That could be fun. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream, and then thanks for doing this with me, Deductor. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you, Sins, and thank you everyone for watching and listening.
All right. Stream is off. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.